Ava Weber was 25 when her brother slid the tailor shop key across their grandmother's dining table and said, "You should probably take it before somebody throws it away." The key stopped beside Ava's hand. It was brass, dark around the teeth, with a square paper tag that read 214 West Arch Avenue. Allison's handwriting was still visible beneath a coffee stain. Derek leaned back in the chair that had always belonged to their grandmother. At 32, he'd already decided what the room would look like after he moved in. The flowered curtains would go. So would the narrow china cabinet and the old clock that chimed 4 minutes late. Their Aunt Lori sat at the head of the table with a folder open in front of her. She was 55, tired, and determined to finish the work Allison's death had left behind. She'd spent the past month sorting statements, calling utilities, and answering questions from people who thought an executor knew everything. She didn't know everything. She knew enough to want signatures. "The shop isn't being thrown away," Lori said. "It's part of the settlement." Derek glanced at Ava. "That's what I meant." Ava didn't pick up the key. Rain tapped the dining room windows. On the sideboard, 3 covered dishes from Allison's funeral still had strips of masking tape on them. Someone had written chicken on one and potatoes on another. Nobody had opened either dish. Ava looked at the papers Lori had placed before her. The family settlement gave Derek the house and what remained of the liquid estate. Lori had explained that the money would cover expenses first, including Allison's final bills, funeral costs, and the cost of keeping the house insured during probate. Whatever remained would pass to Derek under the agreement. Ava would receive Allison's tailor shop, its upstairs rooms, and all unwanted contents inside. In exchange, she would waive any further claim against the estate. She read the sentence again. "All unwanted contents," she said. "The machines, tables, fabric, whatever's there," Lori replied. "You haven't made an inventory?" Lori pressed her lips together. "The building isn't safe to wander through." Derek gave a short laugh. "That is the inventory." Ava looked at him. He lifted both hands. "I'm not trying to be mean. The roof leaks. The wiring's ancient. The city sent Grandma notices before she died. She was fixing things. She was putting buckets under things." Ava turned to Lori. "What happens if I don't sign?" The rain seemed louder while Lori arranged the edge of the folder with the table. "We continue through probate," she said. "Everything takes longer. The attorney bills keep running. The shop still needs insurance, taxes, and emergency work. Somebody has to pay those costs. From the estate until the estate can't." Derek leaned forward. "Ava, the place is a liability. Everybody agrees on that. But you said Grandma wanted you connected to it." "She did." "There you go." That wasn't what Allison had said. 3 months before her death, she'd called Ava while Ava was folding sweaters at the clothing store where she worked. Allison's voice had been weak but clear. "Don't let them separate you from the shop," she'd said. Ava had asked what she meant. Allison had coughed, taken a drink of water, then said, "Come see me when you're off." Ava hadn't gone. Her manager had asked her to cover another shift, and she needed the money. By the time she reached Allison's house 2 days later, Lori was there, and Allison was asleep. The conversation never happened. Now Derek called that unfinished warning a reason to accept the worst part of the estate. Ava studied the figures in the folder. One contractor had estimated $38,000 to make the shop usable. The number had been circled in blue ink. Next to it, Lori had written code, roof, electrical, plumbing. "What's the shop worth?" Ava asked. "In its current condition," Lori said. "Possibly less than the work it needs. The land has to be worth something." "It's a narrow commercial lot with a damaged building on it," Derek said. "If it were a prize, I'd be fighting you for it." He smiled as though that settled the matter. Ava's phone vibrated against her leg. She didn't check it. She knew what the message would say. Her former landlord had given her until 6 that evening to collect the last 2 boxes from her apartment. She had already turned in the key after falling behind on rent. The clothing store had closed 6 weeks earlier. Its windows were papered over now, and Ava's final paycheck had covered groceries, her phone bill, and half of what she owed. She had $47 in her checking account and 2 nights offered on a friend's sofa. The friend had been kind, but kindness felt different when all your belongings sat beside the television. Lori knew about the store closing. Derek knew Ava had moved out. Neither of them asked where she was sleeping. "The upstairs rooms," Ava said. "Are they included?" Lori checked the agreement. "They're part of the building. Can anyone legally live there?" Not until the code problems are handled. Derek rubbed a thumb along the table. You could sell the equipment. Those old industrial machines might bring something. That was the first useful thing he'd said, though he offered it because he wanted her signature. Ava imagined the shop as she remembered it. Long cutting tables, black sewing machines set into wood cabinets, chalk dust on the floor, Allison standing at the front counter with pins held between her lips. In the window, a fabric-covered mannequin wore half-finished jackets and formal dresses while people hurried past outside. Ava had spent afternoons there when she was younger. Allison let her sort buttons by color and sweep thread from beneath the machines. She taught Ava how to sew on a button so it stayed, how to shorten a hem without making it obvious, and how to press a seam before judging whether it was straight. Derek had rarely stayed longer than 10 minutes. The shop smelled like steam and wool, and he said it made his eyes itch. Ava picked up the key. Derek's shoulders loosened before she signed anything. She noticed. "Why didn't Grandma sell it?" she asked. Lori looked toward the rain-streaked window. She wouldn't discuss it. Did she owe money on it? Not that I found. Did anyone make an offer? Ava, Lori said quietly. I can only tell you what's in the records. It wasn't an answer, but Lori's hand had gone still on the folder. Derek pushed a pen across the table. Nobody's hiding a treasure in a condemned sewing shop. Ava held his gaze. I didn't say they were. No, but that's where this is going. Grandma said something mysterious, so now you think there's a reason she kept the place. There was a reason. She was stubborn. Allison was a lot of things, Lori said. Can we please keep this civil? Derek looked at the ceiling. Ava read every page again. She understood what the agreement did, even if she didn't understand why Allison had left the family in a position to bargain over it. Once Ava signed, she couldn't return because the roof was worse than expected. She couldn't demand part of the cash because the machine sold for less than Derek predicted. The shop and its trouble would be hers. The house would be Derek's. Allison had bought that house before either of them was born. Its mortgage was paid. The kitchen had a working stove. The roof didn't leak, and the back bedroom had been empty since Allison became ill. Derek owned a house of his own across town. Ava had nowhere to sleep. She turned to the signature page. Lori exhaled through her nose, almost too softly to hear. Before I sign, Ava said, I want every key you have. Front, back, upstairs, cabinets, everything. They're in an envelope, Lori said. And nobody removes anything after today. Derek frowned. Who wants to? I want it written down. Lori found a blank space beneath the property description and wrote that possession of the building and its contents would pass to Ava upon signing. She initialed the addition, then pushed it to Derek. He read it. This is unnecessary, then initial it. He looked at Lori, hoping she would object. Lori didn't. Derek initialed. Ava signed her name. For a moment, nobody spoke. The clock in the living room chimed once, though it was nearly 2. Lori gathered the pages. I'll send you a complete copy. Ava slipped the shop key into her pocket. I need the others. Lori left the room and returned with a white envelope. Ava counted 6 keys inside. Each had one of Allison's paper tags, written in the same steady hand. Front, rear, upstairs, office, cloth room, courtyard gate. Ava touched the last tag. What courtyard gate? The loading area behind the shop, Derek said. It's full of weeds. I remember the courtyard. I don't remember a gate key. Now you have one. He stood and reached for the coffee mug beside him. Allison's mug, Ava noticed. It had blue measuring tapes painted around the rim. Are you moving in today? She asked. Next weekend? That fast? It's my house now. He didn't say it cruelly. He said it with the easy certainty of someone who expected doors to open because his name was on the right paper. Ava left before he could offer to help carry her boxes. The rain followed her across Cersei. She drove an old hatchback packed so tightly that the rear window was useless. Her clothes filled 2 plastic bins. A lamp lay across the back seat beside a rolled sleeping bag. The boxes from her apartment were in the trunk. At 6 minutes past 2, she parked outside Allison's Tailor shop. The building stood between a closed insurance office and a narrow brick storefront used for storage. Its painted sign had faded from deep green to gray. One corner hung lower than the other. Allison's Tailor shop was still readable. A strip of paper had been taped inside the front door. Unsafe for occupancy, pending repairs. Ava stayed in the car while the wipers dragged rain across the windshield. She had expected neglect. She hadn't expected the shop to look ashamed. Water ran from a broken gutter and struck the sidewalk in a steady sheet. The display window was clouded from inside. Behind it stood the old mannequin, turned slightly toward the street. Its fabric cover had yellowed, and one shoulder leaned lower than the other. Allison had wrapped a clear garment bag around its torso, but the plastic had split. Ava took the brass key from her pocket. The front lock resisted. She pushed the door inward with her shoulder, heard something scrape across the floor, and squeezed through the opening. The smell came first. Damp plaster, dust, old cloth, and the faint machine oil scent she remembered from Allison's workroom. A piece of ceiling tile had fallen behind the door. Ava moved it with her foot and found the light switch. Nothing happened. She used her phone flashlight. The front counter remained in place. So did the wooden thread rack and the rolling mirror customers had used during fittings. Garment bags hung along one wall, empty and gray with dust. 3 metal buckets sat across the floor. Rainwater struck one with a hollow tapping sound. Ava walked deeper into the shop. Hello? She felt foolish as soon as she said it. No one was supposed to be there. Something moved near the cutting tables. Ava stopped. A gray head rose slowly from behind a cabinet, followed by a lined face and 2 raised hands. "Don't swing that flashlight at me," the man said. "I'm too old to defend myself and too stiff to duck." "Who are you?" "Robert Montgomery." The name reached her a moment before the memory did. Allison had mentioned Robert for years. He'd worked beside her before retiring, though Ava hadn't seen him since Allison's funeral. "What are you doing in here?" Trying to find the water shutoff. Robert was 68, broad through the shoulders, and soaked down one sleeve. "Roof started leaking harder this morning. Your aunt called me, then told me she couldn't authorize repairs until the papers were signed." "The papers are signed." He lowered his hands. "Who got the shop?" "I did." Robert looked at her for several seconds. His expression didn't brighten. "I'm sorry," he said. Ava almost laughed. "That's what everybody says." A heavier stream of water hit the bucket behind her. Robert looked toward the ceiling. "If we don't clear that roof drain, you'll lose more plaster before dark. I don't have money to hire you. I didn't ask for money." He opened a low cabinet and pulled out a rusted wrench. Ava looked at his wet sleeve. "You already went up there?" "I got as far as the ladder. Then my knee reminded me of our arrangement." "What arrangement?" "I don't climb wet ladders. It doesn't bend when I ask nicely." Ava set down her phone, moved a bucket beneath the growing leak, and picked it up again. "Show me the drain." They went through the rear workroom. Robert knew which floorboard shifted and which door needed lifting before it would open. The back door led to a covered loading step and a courtyard enclosed by old brick walls. Weeds had grown through the pavement. A metal gate faced the alley, secured with a padlock gone orange with rust. Against the rear wall, a ladder reached the low roof. Ava looked up into the rain. Robert said, "You don't have to do it today." Ava thought of Derek sitting in Allison's chair. She thought of the $47 in her account and the sleeping bag in her car. Then she tested the ladder with both hands. "Hold it steady." The roof drain was packed with leaves, cloth scraps, and black mud. Ava cleared it with a broken ruler Robert handed up to her. Water pulled free with a deep gulp and rushed through the downspout. Inside, the hard stream slowed to separate drops. Robert placed a fresh bucket beneath them. Ava stood beside him, wet to the skin, listening as each drop landed cleanly in the center. "That bought us a little time," he said. "Us." Ava went to the front window and pulled the torn garment bag from the mannequin. Dust lifted from its cloth shoulder beneath her hand. The figure wobbled but stayed upright. Then she turned Allison's old open sign around, not toward open, but away from closed. Robert watched her turn the sign, then looked toward the cutting tables. "That's not the same as opening. I know." "Good. The city knows too." Ava pushed wet hair away from her face. "Is there any part of this building that won't get me in trouble?" "The bathroom sink worked in March. That's encouraging. It only had cold water. Less encouraging." Robert took the flashlight and led her to a narrow door beside the stairs. The electrical panel was hidden behind rolls of brown pattern paper. He moved them one at a time, checking each roll before laying it flat. "Allison hated throwing away a usable inch," he said. "She saved wrapping paper after Christmas. She saved the tape if it still had some stick." Ava smiled despite herself. Robert opened the panel. Most of the labels had faded, but Allison had written new ones on strips of cloth tape. front lights, workroom, presses, upstairs, rear exterior. 2 breakers had been switched off. Did the city do that? Ava asked. No. I did, after the leak reached the back fixture. Your grandmother argued with me for 20 minutes. Did she turn them back on? Twice. That sounded like Allison. It also sounded like Robert had spent more time caring for the building than anyone had told Ava. He checked the wall above them for dampness, then switched on the front breaker. A row of ceiling lights flickered. 1 tube buzzed and stayed dark, but 4 others came on. Their cold light exposed every stain, cobweb, and fallen piece of plaster. Ava looked around. The shop was worse when she could see it. Robert seemed to read the thought on her face. Light's rude at first. Does it improve? The room does, if somebody works. Ava found a broom behind the fitting curtain. Its handle had been repaired with black cloth tape. She swept plaster into a pile while Robert moved the buckets and checked the walls. Neither of them discussed what she planned to do with the building. Ava didn't have a plan beyond keeping the roof from dropping onto anything she might sell. The first machine sat beneath a vinyl cover near the front counter. She pulled the cover away and found an old black straight-stitch model set into a heavy oak table. Robert came over when he heard the cabinet creak. Don't force the treadle. I wasn't. You were thinking about it. He crouched carefully and worked the pedal with one hand. The belt turned, stiff at first, then more smoothly. This was hers? Ava asked. Her everyday machine. The fancy one in the office was for buttonholes. Ava ran a finger across the metal plate. Dust came away in a clean line. Could I sell it? Robert stayed crouched. You could. How much? Depends who buys it. Someone who wants furniture might pay more than someone who understands it. That makes no sense. Most prices don't. He stood with one hand against the table. Ava waited for him to tell her not to sell it. He didn't. What would you do? She asked. Oil it. That doesn't answer the question. It answers the question I'm willing to answer today. She left the machine covered. They cleared enough floor to reach the stairs. The first tread groaned beneath Ava's foot. Robert made her wait while he tested the handrail. You don't need to inspect every inch tonight, he said. I need to know whether I can sleep here. His hand stopped on the rail. You can't. I didn't ask whether the city approves. I'm not the city. Then you don't have to approve. Robert looked past her toward the bins visible through the front window. The sleeping bag made her situation plain. There's a motel near the highway, he said. With what money? He didn't answer. Ava climbed. The upstairs hallway had 2 small rooms on one side and a larger room facing the street. Allison had once used the larger room for storage. Now cardboard boxes stood along the walls beneath plastic sheets. The ceiling was dry. The floor felt level. The first small room held a metal bed frame without a mattress. The second had a desk, a lamp, and 3 dress forms crowded together like people waiting for a bus. Ava tried the lamp. It didn't come on. Bulb might be dead, Robert said from the doorway. She unscrewed the bulb, took one from the hallway fixture, and tried again. Warm light filled the room. That outlet works, she said. One does. It was a small fact, but it felt like something she could put her weight on. The bathroom stood at the end of the hall. Brown water sputtered from the sink before running clear. The toilet flushed after Robert lifted the tank lid and adjusted the chain. Cold sink, working toilet, dry ceiling, Ava said. That's practically luxury. It's not safe housing. It's safer than my car. Robert set the tank lid back in place. He knew better than to argue as if she had choices she didn't possess. Your grandmother kept clean sheets in the house, he said. Top shelf of the hall closet. Derek has the house. There's sheets. So is the roof. He got the better one. Robert looked at her, then away. Ava returned downstairs for her phone. It showed 3 missed calls from her landlord and 1 message from Lori. Please tell me where you're staying tonight. Ava called Lori before she could decide not to. Her aunt answered quickly. Are you at the shop? Yes. You can't stay there. Robert said that too. Robert's there? He found the water shut off. We cleared the roof drain. Lori was silent for a moment. She had expected Ava to collect the keys and go somewhere else. The settlement had been easier to defend, while the shop remained an item on paper. You need to leave before dark, Lori said. It's already getting dark. Come to my house. Ava sat on the front counter. For how long? What? How many nights can I stay? We'll figure it out. Tonight then? Ava, don't do this. I'm asking because I need to know. You can stay tonight. And tomorrow? Lori lowered her voice. I have work early. I don't have the guest room cleared. Ava stared at the buckets on the floor. That's okay. I didn't say no. You didn't say yes. Robert pretended to study the machine belt. Lori took a breath. Why didn't you tell me the apartment situation was this bad? I told you I had to move. You said you were staying with someone. I was. Her sister came into town. You should have called. Ava looked through the display window. Rain continued pouring from the repaired downspout. When? She asked. While you were trying to finish probate, or while Derek was explaining that I should be grateful for a building nobody wanted. That isn't fair. No, it isn't. Lori's silence changed. She was no longer talking as executor. She was Ava's aunt, and she didn't like what she heard in her own answers. Come get the sheets, Lori said. I'll meet you at the house. Are they mine? They're sheets, Ava. That's what Robert said. Robert raised one finger without turning around. Lori continued. There are towels, too. Your grandmother would want you to have them. Ava almost asked what else Allison would have wanted. She stopped because Lori would give the same answer she always gave when Allison's choices became uncomfortable. We can't ask her now. I'll come by, Ava said. Robert offered to stay while she went, but Ava locked the shop and drove him to his house instead. He lived 6 streets away in a small brick duplex with a porch light on and 2 empty flower pots beside the door. Before getting out, he pointed toward Ava's back seat. Don't put the sleeping bag directly on that upstairs floor. There's a folding cot behind the cloth room shelves. Why didn't you mention that before? You didn't ask where Allison took her naps. She slept at work? She rested her eyes. If you called it sleeping, she charged you for the insult. Ava smiled. Robert opened the car door, then paused. My workbench is still in the back room. I saw it. I built that bench when Allison and I started doing formal wear. Ava waited. I'd like to clean it up, he said. If you're not selling everything tomorrow. I don't know what I'm selling, neither do I. His answer made the uncertainty easier to admit. Come by in the morning, she said. Robert nodded once. He didn't thank her as if she'd done him a favor. That mattered. Derek's truck was parked at Allison's house when Ava arrived. The garage door stood open, and cardboard boxes lined one wall. He had begun sorting before the settlement copy could have reached the attorney. Lori waited in the kitchen beside 2 grocery bags. I put sheets, towels, and some food in there, she said. Derek came through the hall carrying the blue measuring tape mug. What food? Things from the pantry. They belong with the house. Lori stared at him. It's canned soup, I'm asking. Ava looked into the bags. Soup, crackers, coffee, 2 rolls of toilet paper, a flashlight, and a package of batteries. I'll pay you for it, she said. Derek shook his head. That's not what I meant. It's usually what you mean. He set the mug on the counter harder than necessary. You signed the agreement. I'm trying to keep the lines clear. The lines are clear. Your canned beans are safe. Ava, Lori said. There it was, the ordinary correction. Derek pushed, Ava reacted, and Lori said Ava's name. It had happened at birthdays, hospital visits, and every Christmas meal that ended early. Derek was considered difficult, but practical. Ava was considered sensitive because she noticed. She lifted the grocery bags. Where's Grandma's sewing box? Derek's expression changed. Which one? The wooden one from the living room. I packed it. For the house? It was in the house. She used it at the shop before she got sick. She used half the things in this house at the shop. Ava set the bags down again. Can I have it? Derek glanced at Lori. He wanted her to decide, because then he could refuse without looking ungenerous. Lori opened a box beside the refrigerator and took out a shallow wooden case. Allison's initials were carved into the lid. Thank you, Ava said. Derek folded his arms. That might be worth something. Then tell me a price. I'm not selling it. You just said it might be worth something. That's not the point. Ava understood then. The box wasn't valuable to Derek until she wanted it. Once she asked, it became part of the side he had won. For years, she had handled him by asking gently, waiting, and letting Lori smooth things over. She called that keeping the family together. In truth, she had helped teach them that her needs could wait until everyone else felt comfortable. Ava picked up the sewing box. This goes with the shop, she said. Derek stepped between her and the door, not close enough to threaten her, but close enough to make her stop. You don't get to rewrite the agreement. I'm not. Grandma carried this box between both places, so it stays where it was. Lori put a hand on the counter. I found it in the pantry with shop receipts inside. Derek turned. When? After Allison went to the hospital. You never said that. You never asked. Lori took the box from Ava, opened it, and lifted the top tray. Beneath spools of thread lay a stack of old repair tickets bearing the shop address. She handed the box back. It belongs with the business contents, she said. Derek moved aside. Ava left without waiting for him to change his mind. At the shop, she unlocked the cloth room and found the folding cot behind 2 shelves, exactly where Robert had said. It opened with a metal snap. One leg was shorter than the others, so Ava folded a piece of cardboard beneath it. She made the bed with Allison's clean sheets. Then she carried the sewing box downstairs and placed it beside the black machine. Inside the bottom compartment, under the repair tickets, she found Allison's small oil bottle and a note written on the back of an envelope. Front machine pulls left. Clean first. Don't blame the needle. Ava read it twice. She removed the vinyl cover, brushed the dust from the machine, and opened the oil bottle. She didn't know yet whether she would keep it, but for the first time that day she did something to the shop that wasn't about stopping damage. She cleaned it. The oil darkened the cloth as it lifted years of dust from the gears. Ava followed Allison's note, cleaning before touching the needle or tension dial. When she pressed the treadle, the machine pulled left exactly as warned. She cleaned beneath the feed dogs with a narrow brush from the box. A knot of blue thread came free. After that, the wheel turned without resistance. Ava found a scrap of cotton on the cutting table and fed it beneath the presser foot. The first line wandered. The second held straight. By the fourth, the stitches looked even enough that Allison might have nodded before finding something else to correct. Ava sat back. The rain had softened. Water still dropped into the bucket, but with several quiet seconds between each one. She carried the scrap upstairs and left it on the desk beside the lamp. It was proof of very little. Still, she wanted to see it when she woke. Robert knocked on the glass at 8 the next morning. He had a travel mug in one hand and a canvas tool bag in the other. Ava hurried downstairs in socks. He looked past her at the cot blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Your car's outside, he said. Yes. You stayed. Yes. The ceiling stayed too. So far. Robert stepped inside. He'd brought biscuits wrapped in foil. One was plain, and the other had egg and cheese. Which do you want? He asked. Ava reached for the plain one. Robert handed her the egg and cheese. That wasn't a real choice, she said. No. He placed the plain biscuit on the counter and walked to the machine. He noticed the cleaned plate, the oil bottle, and the cotton scrap missing from the cutting table. You get it running? It was already running. It needed cleaning. Good answer. I read the note. Still good. He turned the hand wheel, listened, then examined Ava's thread path. He changed nothing. That pleased her more than praise would have. They spent the morning on his workbench. It stood in the rear room beneath a collapsed section of acoustic tile. The top was scarred by blades, chalk, and hot irons. One drawer had swollen shut. Robert removed the drawer and carried it beneath the front lights. Allison spilled tea in there, he said. When? Several times. You didn't move the cup? I tried. She said a cup had a right to sit where it was useful. Ava sanded the swollen edge while Robert cleaned rust from the drawer runners. The workbench held things neither of them expected: a bent tracing wheel, 3 shirt buttons, a dry cough drop stuck to a paper pattern, a receipt for a zipper Allison bought years earlier. Nothing had much value. Robert remembered where each kind of tool belonged. You worked here a long time, Ava said. Most of my adult life. Why did you leave? My hands started locking up. Then my wife got sick. Ava waited, but he didn't say more. His wife's illness belonged to him, not to the shop. Did Grandma replace you? She tried. Nobody stayed. Why? Robert glanced toward the office, as if Allison might still hear him. She corrected people while they were correcting the thing she corrected them about. That sounds exhausting. It was. He smiled. They fitted the drawer back into the bench. It slid smoothly, stopped, and closed flush. Robert pulled it open again, just to make sure. There, he said. The bench had become usable before lunch. Ava ate the plain biscuit while standing at the front counter. Robert took the egg and cheese, one she'd left wrapped. She opened Allison's repair ticket book. The last completed entry was dated 7 months earlier. A jacket sleeve had been shortened for $12. A note in the margin said, "Customer talks with hands. Leave room at elbow." How many people came here before she stopped? Ava asked. Not many, enough to keep her busy 2 or 3 days a week. Why didn't you tell Lori about customers, about the shop still making money? It wasn't making money, it was taking in money. He pointed around the room. There's a difference. Ava looked at the old prices. Hem, $10. Zipper, $14. Waist adjustment, $18. She never raised them. She said people were already standing there with clothes that didn't fit and faces that said they'd spent too much. That's not a business plan. No. Ava turned another page. The work was ordinary. Work trousers, choir robes, a funeral dress, sleeves shortened for someone who had lost weight. People had kept bringing their clothes after the sign faded and the roof began leaking. That didn't make the shop profitable, but it meant the place hadn't become useless just because Derek said it had. "Can I take alterations here?" she asked. Robert chewed slowly. "You can sew?" "That wasn't my question." "You know, basic repairs." "Still not my question." He folded the biscuit wrapper into a square. "You can accept work without opening the building to the public. Drop off at the door. Fittings somewhere safe. But if you take somebody's good coat and this roof drops on it, that's on you." Ava looked at the front room. The leak was behind the customer counter. The machine and fitting area were dry. "What would we need to make this room safe?" "We? You asked to clean your bench. I did. You're standing here eating my biscuit." "I brought the biscuit." "What do we need?" Robert carried his mug to the office and returned with a red folder. Inside were copies of the city notices Allison had received. He laid them across the counter in order. The oldest concerned loose exterior brick. The next listed damaged wiring in the rear workroom. The most recent notice restricted public use until the emergency lighting, bathroom access, and the front ceiling were repaired. Ava traced a sentence with her finger. "This says a repair plan has to be submitted after a change of owner." "It does. How long do I have?" Robert showed her the date written beside the signature line. 28 days now. She looked at him. "You knew?" "I knew the notice existed. I didn't know when your family would sign the place over." "What happens after 28 days?" "They can require you to secure the building and stop all work until you submit a plan." "I can't afford a plan." "You can write one." "You can't afford what it lists." That was the wider problem hidden beneath the estimate. $38,000 wasn't a distant number in a folder. In less than a month, Ava had to show how she intended to fix the building, or risk losing even the ability to work inside it. She gathered the notices into a neat stack. Why did Grandma keep taking jobs? Because people brought them. That's not enough. It was for her. Ava thought of the repair tickets in the sewing box at Derek's house. Allison had been moving records back and forth while the building declined. Lori had called the shop unsafe, yet she had never mentioned active customers. Derek had treated the equipment as salvage. Neither one had asked Robert what happened here near the end. Did Grandma know they might close it? She read every notice. Did she have a repair plan? I never saw one. Did she ever talk about selling? No. Why not? Robert's eyes moved toward the front window. The mannequin stood behind the cloudy glass, its uncovered fabric gray in daylight. She said the shop had more work to do. Ava waited for him to explain. That's all she said. It was useful and irritating in equal measure. Ava found a clean sheet of paper and wrote alterations across the top. Beneath that, she added hems, buttons, simple repairs, and door drop-off by appointment. Robert read it. You need a phone number. She added hers. You need prices. I need to see the clothes first. You need people to know you won't hold their trousers hostage. Ava wrote basic hems starting at $12. Robert nodded. She taped the sign inside the front window, below the city notice, and beside the old clothes sign she had turned away. For 3 hours, nobody called. Ava used the time to clean the customer side of the counter. Robert sorted hand tools at his bench. Near noon, he left to meet a former coworker for lunch. He said he'd return the next morning if his hands cooperated. After he left, Ava took 2 empty garment bags to the trash behind the shop. On the way back, she saw a woman standing outside the front window reading the sign. The woman held a pair of navy trousers over one arm. "Are you open?" she asked when Ava came through the courtyard gate. "Not exactly." The woman glanced at the city notice. "I only need these shortened. I can take them at the door." "You Allison's granddaughter?" "Yes. I wondered what happened to her." Ava didn't know what to say, so she unlocked the front door and accepted the trousers without inviting the woman inside. They discussed the length on the sidewalk. The woman had marked one leg with a safety pin at home. Ava measured both legs, explained that she could have them ready the next afternoon, and quoted $14. The woman handed her the trousers and $7 in cash. "I'll pay the rest when I pick them up." Ava wrote a receipt using Allison's old ticket book. The woman folded her copy into her purse. "Your grandmother always wrote my name wrong." Ava looked at the ticket. "Did I?" "No. That's how I know things are changing." She walked away before Ava could decide whether it was a compliment. Ava locked the door and laid the trousers on the cutting table. She checked the measurements twice. Then she threaded the black machine with navy thread and began. The first hem took longer than it should have. Allison had taught her the method, but not with a customer waiting for the result. Ava unpicked 6 inches after the fabric pulled unevenly. She pressed the fold again, adjusted the guide, and resewed it. The second leg went cleanly. When she finished, the hems matched. Ava hung the trousers in the driest part of the front room and placed the $7 inside the sewing box. The deliberate move had worked. One person had seen her sign, trusted her with something, and paid. Then a drop of water struck the floor near the cutting table. Ava looked up. A faint brown circle had appeared in a ceiling tile that had been dry that morning. She moved the trousers. The roof drain had relieved the standing water, but it hadn't fixed the roof. Every clean surface only made the next failure easier to see. Ava carried a bucket beneath the new stain. On her way back, she brushed against the mannequin in the window. Its torso gave a dull knock. She stopped. The sound was different from the hollow tap of the buckets. Something inside the fabric-covered body had shifted. Ava steadied the mannequin with both hands. The cloth felt smooth across the front and rougher along one side. Beneath the right arm, a line of stitches ran diagonally through fabric that had been opened and sewn closed again. The thread was faded, but the stitches were close and deliberate. Ava pressed lightly along the seam. Halfway down, her fingertips met the sharp edge of something flat and stiff beneath the cloth. She didn't cut it open. Instead, she turned the mannequin away from the window, carried it behind the counter, and called Robert. He answered on the 5th ring. Did the ceiling come down? No. Did the toilet quit? No. Then you're ahead. There's something inside the mannequin. Robert didn't respond. Did you hear me? I heard you. It moved when I bumped it. There's a seam under the arm, and I can feel a rectangle. Don't cut anything. I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it. Ava looked at the sewing scissors on the counter. Can you come back? I'm halfway through lunch. I'll wait. Move it somewhere dry. Keep it upright. He hung up. Ava carried the mannequin into the office, where the ceiling showed no water stains. The figure was heavier than it looked. Its iron base caught twice on the threshold, and she had to tilt the torso toward herself to clear it. Something shifted again. The sound came from the right side, just behind the diagonal seam. She set the mannequin beside Allison's desk and closed the office door. Then she moved the finished trousers farther from the leak and returned to cleaning. Waiting was difficult once she knew the object was there. Her eyes kept going toward the office. A stiff rectangle could be cardboard used to reinforce a repair. It could be an old pattern envelope. It could be nothing Allison intended anyone to find. But ordinary reinforcement wouldn't slide inside a hollow body. Robert returned less than an hour later. He had brought a small lamp with a magnifying lens and a leather case of hand tools. Ava locked the front door behind him. "Show me where you touched it," he said. She led him into the office and pointed beneath the mannequin's right arm. Robert positioned the lamp. Under the bright circle of light, the repair became easier to see. The original side seam ran straight from the arm to the hip. Someone had opened part of it, folded the fabric inward, then sewn it closed on a slant. Robert adjusted the lens. "You recognize it," Ava said. "I recognize the stitch." "How?" "Because I spent 30 years taking it out." Ava leaned closer. The thread crossed the seam in short diagonal strokes. Every 4th stitch passed backward through the previous hole. "Allison did that when she repaired something she couldn't get under a machine," Robert said. "Curtain lining, coat sleeves, stuffed forms. She said a straight hand stitch opened too easily. So she opened this." "Yes." "Why?" Robert pressed 2 fingers around the stiff object. He didn't push directly on it. "It's about this size," he said, marking a rectangle in the air. "An envelope?" "Could be. What else?" "Pattern card, photograph in a sleeve, thin book. Ava reached for the seam. Robert moved her hand aside. No, it belongs to me. I know. Then why are you stopping me? Because that fabric's dry enough to split. If you cut one stitch and pull the wrong direction, the whole side may open. Whatever's in there could drop into the base. Can't we take the torso off? Not without loosening the bottom plate. Those screws haven't moved since I had dark hair. Ava crouched beside the iron stand. 4 flathead screws secured a round metal plate beneath the torso. Rust covered the slots. Robert opened his tool case and tried the first screw with a narrow driver. It didn't move. I can get penetrating oil, Ava said. You can. Then we wait. For how long? Long enough for it to work. She stood again. Robert examined the repair through the lens. His face had changed. He no longer looked curious. He looked bothered. What? Ava asked. That stitch isn't old enough to be original. How can you tell? The fabric has faded around it. The thread hasn't faded as much. When was it done? I can't date thread by looking at it. But after the mannequin was made. Long after. He lifted the right arm slightly. Beneath it, hidden from anyone facing the mannequin, was a patch no wider than Ava's palm. Allison made this repair on purpose, Robert said. She wanted it to hold. Did she ever hide things? She hid chocolate from me? Robert. She kept cash in a tea tin until everybody knew she kept cash in a tea tin. After that, she moved it. Where? I never found out. He lowered the arm. Ava wanted to open the seam at once. She also heard Allison's voice correcting her at the machine years earlier. If you're in a hurry, take your hands off the cloth. What do we do? She asked. We stabilize the cover, loosen the base, open it from below if we can, and if we can't, then we cut the repair, one stitch at a time. Ava took the penetrating oil from the maintenance shelf. Robert applied a drop to each screw. They carried the mannequin upstairs to the dry room with the working lamp and laid an old cotton sheet around its base. Tomorrow, he said. Ava looked at the side seam. Tomorrow, she agreed. The woman returned for her navy trousers at 4. Ava met her outside and watched her check both hems against each other. These are right, the woman said. Ava hadn't realized how tightly she was holding the ticket book until her fingers relaxed. The woman paid the remaining $7, then handed Ava a tan skirt from her car. Can you replace a zipper? Ava examined it. Yes. When? 2 days. The woman agreed to $20 and paid half in advance. Before leaving, she photographed Ava's sign with her phone. My office has 3 women who keep buying trousers too long, she said. I'll tell them. By the next morning, Ava had 2 calls. One was for a missing coat button. The other required a fitting she couldn't safely provide inside. She asked the caller to wait until the front room reopened. The woman said she could wait a week. A week. The word turned a possibility into a deadline. Robert arrived with a pry bar, a box of new ceiling tiles, and a folding stepladder. I didn't buy those, Ava said. I had them in my garage. All of them? Some came from my laundry room. Does your laundry room have a ceiling? Most of one. Ava refused to take the tiles for free. Robert refused money. They settled on writing down every material he contributed so the shop could repay him if it began earning. That means you have to keep records, he said. I know how. You put customer money in a sewing box. I had 1 customer. Now you have 2. He opened the ticket book and wrote a page number at the bottom. Every job gets a number. Every payment gets a line. Materials come out. Labor stays separate. Allison didn't do that. Allison could remember every nickel while forgetting where she set her glasses. Together, they removed the damaged ceiling tiles above the front fitting area. Robert worked from the floor, cutting replacements while Ava climbed the ladder. The grid was intact. The leak had stained one corner, but the supports held. By noon, the fitting area had a clean ceiling. Ava wiped the mirror and positioned it where daylight reached it. She marked a safe path from the door with painter's tape, keeping customers away from the damaged rear section. A battery lamp from Lori's grocery bag went above the exit. Robert inspected the route. The city may still say no. Will you help me write the repair plan? He rubbed his right hand. 2 fingers had begun to stiffen. Yes. What do you want in return? I told you, I want my bench. That's not enough. It's enough today. Ava sat at the counter with the red folder. She listed the work already completed, then separated the remaining repairs by urgency: roof patch, electrical isolation, emergency lighting, bathroom access, front ceiling, rear masonry. Robert corrected her descriptions when they became too confident. "You can't write repaired if it's patched," he said. "The ceiling is repaired, the tiles are replaced. The leak above them is not repaired. You make progress sound depressing. I make it accurate." They took photographs of the cleared path, new ceiling tiles, working toilet, and covered electrical fixtures. Ava added estimates from Allison's folder and wrote that public access would remain limited to the front fitting area. The city office accepted the plan that afternoon. The clerk didn't promise approval. She stamped Ava's copy, explained that an inspector would review the front room, and told her to keep customers outside until then. "When?" Ava asked. "Within 10 business days." Ava walked back to the shop, holding the stamped page against her chest to protect it from a light rain. She had done what the notice required. The building would not be secured merely because ownership had changed. She now had time to show progress. The cost sat in the repair schedule beneath the stamp. Roof work had to begin within 30 days. Electrical corrections had to follow. If she missed the dates without requesting changes, the plan could be rejected. She needed far more than hems and zipper repairs. Back at the shop, Robert had loosened 3 screws from the mannequin's base. The 4th remained stuck. 3 is progress, he said. Ava placed the stamped plan on Allison's desk. "This is progress too." Robert read it. "It is. The inspector's coming. That happens when you request an inspection. I thought you'd sound happier. I'll sound happy when they leave without putting up more paper." Ava checked the mannequin. The stiff object remained in the same place. The seam hadn't opened. "We could cut it now," she said. "We could. But you don't think we should. I think you've got a customer coming tomorrow, a roof deadline, $14 earned, and no insurance for anything valuable you might pull out. I have $31 in deposits. You have $31 belonging partly to work. You haven't finished." That was true. Ava closed the office door. For the next 3 days, she completed every job she accepted. She replaced the skirt zipper. She sewed a horn button onto a wool coat and reinforced the other 3. Robert showed her how to steam a trouser crease without shining the fabric. The woman with the coat stood outside after pickup and told someone on the phone, "The young woman at Allison's place fixed it." The young woman at Allison's place. Ava heard the words through the glass. On the 4th morning, a dark blue car stopped beside the curb. A woman stepped out, read the alteration sign, then looked past it at the long cutting tables in the rear workroom. She tried the door. Ava met her outside. "I'm not open for walk-ins yet," Ava said. "I'm not here for alterations." The woman introduced herself as Sydney Avila and handed Ava a card from a regional costume cooperative. "We heard Allison's tables were still here," Sydney said. "Who told you?" "A former customer posted a picture of your sign." The tables showed through the window. Ava glanced behind her. Sydney continued. "We need production space, not a storefront. Secure tables, power, storage, and a way to load from the rear. The rear room isn't usable." "Can it be?" "With enough money. That's usually how buildings work." Sydney walked to the edge of the storefront and looked down the side passage toward the alley. "Does the courtyard come with this address?" Ava took the gate key from her pocket. "It came with the keys." "That wasn't my question." Ava looked at the card, then at the stamped repair plan inside the shop. "What exactly are you looking for?" she asked. Sydney put both hands into her coat pockets. "A long lease," she said. Ava didn't answer at once. The word lease belonged to people with repaired roofs and bank accounts. It didn't belong to $31 in a sewing box. "How long?" she asked. 5 years, with options after that. For the whole building? For the rear production room, secure storage, the courtyard, and shared use of the front. You could keep alterations here. Ava studied Sydney's card. It listed a Little Rock office, a warehouse number, and a website for the cooperative. The name was familiar. Allison had once repaired a row of military jackets for a touring production that came through Cersei. "You've worked with this shop before," Ava said. "Not directly. One of our designers did. She said your grandmother had the best cutting tables in the county and the worst telephone manners." "That sounds accurate." Sydney smiled. "Can I see them?" "The public can't come inside until the inspection. I'm not the public. I'm a potential tenant inspecting a workspace. I think the city would still count you as a person." That's fair. Ava unlocked the courtyard gate instead. They walked through the alley and entered the rear loading area without passing through the shop. The courtyard weeds were wet from the rain. A cracked concrete strip ran from the gate to the loading step. Sydney paced the width of the gate, then measured it with a small tape from her bag. "What would you load?" Ava asked. "Rolling garment racks, fabric bolts, trunks. Sometimes scenery pieces, but nothing large enough to need a truck dock." The gate opened toward the alley, but dragged across the pavement. Ava had used it only twice. Sydney pulled it halfway, tested the hinge, then pointed to the rusted lower corner. "That's repairable. You say that easily. I spend my life making temporary things look permanent. That doesn't help me trust your building advice. It shouldn't." Sydney photographed the loading step and the rear door. Ava let her look through the glass. Inside, the long tables ran nearly the length of the workroom. Robert's bench stood against the wall, cleaned and ready. The damaged electrical fixture had been disconnected and covered. "How many people would work here?" Ava asked. "Usually 6, sometimes 12 during a build. No overnight work. We work late near opening dates." "How late?" "Midnight, occasionally." Ava looked up at the windows of the rooms where she slept. Sydney followed her gaze. "You're living upstairs. I'm keeping an eye on the building." "That wasn't what I said. The upstairs wouldn't be part of the lease." "Good. We don't need it." Sydney tried the rear door. Ava had locked it from inside. "When's your inspection?" "Within 10 business days. If the front room passes, that helps. We'd still need the rear electrical work, roof, locks, fire separation, and better lighting in the courtyard." "You've already made a list. I came to look because we're already looking elsewhere." That changed the conversation. "How much time do I have?" Ava asked. "To show me the property can work?" 2 weeks. To complete repairs, we'd negotiate. 2 weeks isn't enough to fix the rear room. I don't need it fixed in 2 weeks. I need a repair budget, proof you can lease everything you're offering, and a realistic completion date." Ava held up the key. "I can open the gate. Keys are useful. They aren't proof." Sydney took the card back long enough to write an email address on the reverse. "Send me your repair plan and the property description. If they're workable, I'll give you written terms." "What kind of rent?" Sydney looked through the rear glass again. "For the space as discussed, $3,200 a month after the work is completed." Ava thought she'd misunderstood. "Per month?" "Yes. For rooms with buckets in them? For a secure production space near the highway, with tables we don't have to install, and a loading courtyard we can control. The buckets need to go. $3,200 would pay for more than buckets. It would give Ava a reason to keep the tables, the machines, and the building itself. It would also require her to repair everything the family had dismissed as impossible." Sydney left through the alley. Ava stayed in the courtyard with the gate key in her hand. Robert found her there 20 minutes later, pulling weeds from the concrete strip. "Did the inspector come early?" he asked. "No. A costume cooperative wants to lease the rear room." Robert set down his tool bag. "Which one?" She showed him the card. He read the name and let out a low sound. "Allison did work for people connected to them." Sydney heard about the tables. "She should. I built one of them. She offered $3,200 a month if we make the building usable." Robert looked through the rear door. You keep doing that. So do you." Ava pulled another weed. The root came free with a clump of wet soil. "She needs a repair budget and proof the courtyard comes with the building." Robert looked toward the brick wall at the back. "Why wouldn't it?" She said, "A key isn't proof." "She's right. You could try sounding less pleased when other people correct me. I'm pleased they say it before you sign anything." They spent the afternoon measuring the rear room. Robert remembered the placement of every cutting station and outlet. Ava wrote the dimensions on the back of an old pattern sheet. One table rocked where a wooden foot had split. They emptied the drawers, turned it on its side, and removed the damaged piece. Robert cut a replacement from hard maple he'd brought for his bench. "You plan to use that," Ava said. "I'm using it. For my table. For Allison's table." Ava held the leg steady while he drilled new pilot holes. His right hand tightened around the drill, then stopped. "Give me a minute." She waited. He opened and closed his fingers until they moved again. "You don't have to finish today," she said. "I'd like to." "That's different from having to." Robert handed her the drill. "Then you finish it." He showed her how to keep the bit straight. Ava attached the replacement foot, and together they turned the table upright. It stood level. Sydney had wanted evidence the space could work. The repaired table was one small piece of it. Ava photographed the smooth surface, the new foot, and the clear aisle to the loading door. Then she opened the settlement copy. The property description was a block of directions, distances, and lot references she couldn't picture. The street address appeared once. The courtyard did not. Ava found an old property tax notice in Allison's office. It listed the shop building and front lot. A second parcel number had been written by hand in the corner, followed by rear. Did Allison have two tax bills? Ava asked. Robert adjusted the new table leg. She complained about paying two. Why two? She bought the courtyard separately. Ava looked up. When? Years ago? The shop originally ended at the back step. Who owned the courtyard before? I don't remember. Somebody used it for storage. Why did she buy it? Delivery access, fire exit, space to roll racks without carrying them through the fitting room. He came to the desk. The handwritten parcel number didn't appear anywhere in Ava's settlement. That's the inconsistency Sydney meant, Ava said. Robert read the page twice. Call your aunt, Lori answered from work. Ava explained the lease inquiry, the requested property description, and the second tax number. Don't send Sydney anything yet, Lori said. Why? Because I need to check the estate file. The courtyard came with the shop. It was used with the shop. I have the gate key. A key isn't legal ownership. I heard that today. Lori's chair creaked through the phone. The settlement used the description from the shop's main tax record. Did you know there was another parcel? I knew Allison received more than one tax bill. I assumed the smaller one was included in the legal description. You assumed? I was dealing with the property records the attorney gave me. Who got anything not listed? The settlement assigns the remaining estate according to its terms. To Derek? Potentially? Ava stood beside the repaired table, staring through the rear glass at the courtyard. Does he know about Sydney? No. Don't tell him yet. I can't conceal information from someone affected by the estate. You didn't even know if he was affected until I called. That's why I have to check. Ava lowered her voice. Lori, I signed because you said the shop and its contents were mine. They are. The shop can't support this lease without the courtyard. I understand. No. You understand that reopening your file is inconvenient. Lori didn't deny it. I'll look tonight, she said. Don't promise Sydney access to land until we know who owns it. After the call, Ava emailed Sydney the repair plan and room measurements. She did not attach the property description. She wrote that she was confirming the courtyard record and would respond within 2 days. Sydney replied 10 minutes later. The room dimensions work. I'll prepare conditional terms. Clear control of the courtyard is essential. Ava showed Robert. That's useful, he said. It's also a problem. Most useful things are. The front room inspector arrived the following morning. He checked the path, ceiling, battery light, electrical covers, and bathroom. Robert stayed near his bench but didn't interrupt. The inspector approved limited customer access to the front fitting area. The rear room remained restricted, and the repair deadlines stayed in place. After he left, Ava removed the city notice from the inside of the front door. She kept it in the red folder rather than throwing it away. Then she turned Allison's sign to open. 2 customers came before lunch. One needed shirt sleeves shortened. The other brought 3 pairs of work trousers. Ava completed the fitting in the cleared area and wrote each job into Robert's numbered ledger. At 1, Derek walked through the door. He looked at the clean ceiling, the lit fitting area, and the 2 garments hanging behind the counter. You opened. The front room passed inspection, I heard. Ava didn't ask how. Derek walked to the rear doorway. The painter's tape across it stopped him from entering. What's happening back there? Repairs? For alterations? For the building? He turned toward the courtyard windows. Lori said someone's interested in the property. Ava closed the ledger. Someone's interested in leasing workspace. How much? That's between me and the potential tenant. You called Lori about land that may still be in the estate. I called because the parcel number was missing from the settlement. Derek looked around again. The same tables he'd called salvage now appeared orderly beneath cleaned lights. He noticed Robert's restored bench. He noticed the open sign and the waiting garments. You're going to spend money you don't have, he said. I'm earning some. $14 at a time, sometimes 20. He ignored that. If there's real interest, we should sell everything together. The shop, the back parcel, all of it. You'd walk away without the repair burden. And go where? You'd have cash. How much? We'd have to get it valued. We? If the rear parcel belongs to the estate, yes. Ava held the front counter with both hands. Derek softened his voice. I'm trying to keep you from getting buried. You could help by giving Lori time to find the correct record. I am giving her time. He lifted his phone and photographed the courtyard through the rear glass. Then he photographed the handwritten parcel number on Allison's tax notice before Ava could cover it. I'll look into it too, he said. He put the phone in his pocket. You could have asked, Ava said. For a picture of a tax notice? For anything. I just did. No, you told me what you think should happen. Derek glanced at the customer's garments. I think you need to be realistic. Then be realistic somewhere else. I have work due. He looked surprised by the request to leave. Allison had never made him leave the shop. She had simply stopped talking until he became uncomfortable enough to go. Derek stepped toward the door. Don't sign anything with Sydney, he said. You don't get to give me instructions here. If that courtyard belongs to the estate, I have a say. Then prove it. The door closed behind him. Ava stood still until his truck pulled away. One customer's shirt hung crooked on its hanger. She straightened it, returned to the machine, and finished the first sleeve before allowing herself to check the window again. Derek didn't return. Lori came at 6 with Allison's estate file in a canvas tote. The shop had closed for customers, but Robert was still at his bench, rubbing wax into the restored drawer runners. Lori set the tote on the cutting table. This room was restricted, she said. It still is for customers, Ava replied. You can stand by the door. I'm not a customer. That's what Sydney said. Robert coughed into his hand to hide a laugh. Lori opened the file. She had found the original deed for the main shop lot, the tax card, the settlement, and copies of Allison's recent bills. The shop description stops at the rear wall, she said. The courtyard has its own parcel number, so it wasn't included, not by description. What does that mean? It means I have to ask the probate attorney. Derek entered through the front before Ava could answer. Lori had invited him without warning her. Ava looked at her aunt. You could have told me. He's affected. He wants to be affected. Derek removed his rain jacket and laid it across the counter. I checked the county property search, he said. The rear parcel still shows Grandma's name. Online records can be incomplete, Lori said. But this one isn't. She owned it when she died. Ava looked at the second tax card. Then, why wasn't it in the estate inventory? Lori's face tightened. It should have been. No one spoke. Robert stopped working on the drawer. Ava read the parcel number again, as if a second look might place it inside the settlement. It didn't. Did you pay the tax bill? She asked Lori. The estate paid all bills forwarded to me. Was this one forwarded? I'd have to check. You brought the file. The payment records are at home. Derek pulled out a chair. We can correct it. The parcel gets added, then we sell the full property. You keep skipping the part where I agree, Ava said. You can't lease a loading yard you don't own. I know, and the cooperative won't want the shop without it. I know that too. Lori rested both palms on the table. Nobody is deciding anything tonight. The omission has to be handled correctly. What does correctly mean? Ava asked. It may require reopening the estate. May? The attorney needs to review it. Derek shook his head. The settlement is clear about residual property. Lori didn't correct him. Ava saw the shape of the problem then. Lori had wanted every property question finished. Derek wanted the parcel treated as something left over after the division, because anything left over favored him. Ava had a key, years of shop use, and a building that depended on the courtyard, but none of those things answered whose name belonged on the land. Lori closed the file. Until this is resolved, no one should enter a contract involving the rear parcel. Sydney gave me 2 weeks, Ava said. That doesn't change ownership. It changes whether the offer waits. Derek leaned toward her. Then, let it go. You were going to sell the equipment 4 days ago. I was going to see what I could salvage. Same difference. No, it isn't. Ava looked around the room. The repaired table stood level. Customer work waited in numbered order. The front fitting area had passed. Robert's bench no longer looked abandoned. 4 days earlier, she had needed the shop to give her enough money to leave it. That goal now felt smaller than the room. Lori lifted the tote. I'll call the attorney first thing. When will you have an answer? I don't know. Give me a day. Lori hesitated. Tomorrow afternoon. After they left, Robert locked the front door. You all right? He asked. No. Do you want tea? No, I'm making some. The office kettle had rust inside, so he heated water in the upstairs bathroom using Ava's small electric pot. They drank tea from paper cups at the cutting table. Ava showed him Sydney's email again. "If the courtyard isn't mine, the lease is gone," she said. "Probably. The repair plan stays." "Yes." "The roof deadline stays." "Yes." "And I own a building that needs work because I signed away everything else for it." Robert let the tea cool before drinking. "You can still sell machines," he said. "I know. You can sell the shop. I know. You can walk away before borrowing money. I know." He looked at her over the cup. "Then say the part you're avoiding." Ava folded Sydney's card between her fingers. "I don't want to." "To borrow? To walk away?" Robert nodded. That answer created no money and solved no title problem. It did remove one option Ava had been pretending was still her plan. The next morning, Sydney returned with a folder of her own. She met Ava in the front fitting room and stayed behind the painter's tape. "I received your measurements," she said. "The rear room works. What about the courtyard? I need clear control of it. Ownership, a valid lease from whoever owns it, or a written access agreement that can't disappear next month. I'm confirming the record. Is there a problem? There's a separate parcel number. It wasn't written into my settlement." Sydney took that in without changing expression. "Can it be resolved?" "I don't know yet." "Then I can't make the lease final, but you can give me terms." Sydney handed her the folder. The draft offered $3,200 in monthly rent once repairs were completed, and the cooperative took possession. It required secure use of the rear workroom and courtyard, shared access to the front, and a 5-year term. Ava read the completion condition twice. "How long would you give me for repairs?" 4 months after signing. "We'd help specify electrical needs and security, but you'd pay for the building work. $38,000. That's your estimate? It's the one in Allison's file." Sydney walked to the front window and studied the building across the street. "We looked at buying a space outside Little Rock," she said. A smaller building without usable tables was listed at $280,000. Ava waited. "If this building and the rear parcel are held together, repaired, and leased," Sydney continued, "the combined property could support a value around $310,000. That's not an offer from us. It's what our property advisor used when comparing a lease against a purchase." The figure made Ava grip the folder more tightly. Derek had called the shop a repair liability. The estimate hadn't changed. The roof still leaked, and the wiring still needed work. But the courtyard and workroom together could make the property worth far more than either piece appeared to be alone. The family had divided the estate as though the shop were a burden at one address. Allison had used it as a working property with 2 connected parcels. "Can you wait while the ownership question is handled?" Ava asked. "For 2 weeks, yes. After that, I have to move on another site." Sydney pointed to the draft. "If you can show control of the full space and financing for repairs, I'll take this to our board." Ava spent the rest of that day gathering what the lender requested. She sent the stamped repair plan, photographs, Allison's shop deed, the draft lease terms, and 3 years of property tax records. She did not claim ownership of the courtyard. The first answer came the following morning. The main shop property could secure a rehabilitation note, but the uncertain rear parcel could not be included. Sydney's conditional interest helped show a possible source of repayment, yet the lender would not treat it as guaranteed income. The note offered the full $38,000 for approved repairs. The interest rate was higher than Ava hoped. Payments would begin before the cooperative moved in. If the lease failed, the debt would remain secured against the shop. Ava printed the papers at the public library and carried them back beneath her jacket. Robert read the payment schedule at the cutting table. "This is expensive," he said. "I noticed. If the courtyard goes to Derek, Sydney walks. I noticed that too. You'd be making payments on alterations. I'm getting more alterations. You'd need hundreds. Then we offer more than hems." Robert turned a page. "Workshops?" Ava looked at him. "You said your hands lock," she said. "They do. You left because of them. I left because sewing all day became difficult. Teaching isn't sewing all day. You want to teach here? I wanted to before Allison got sick." Ava had never heard that. Did she agree? She said we'd clear the upstairs storage and run evening classes. Then the roof got worse. My wife needed me. Allison wouldn't let anyone see how tired she was. "Why didn't you tell me? You were working at the clothing store. You came when you could." Ava heard no accusation in his voice, which made the truth harder to avoid. She had come when it was convenient, accepted Allison's "I'm fine," and let Lori handle the appointments. She had loved the shop as a memory, while other people carried its daily weight. Now she wanted to keep it. Wanting created work. Lori called at 3. "The attorney agrees the rear parcel was omitted," she said. "Because the settlement doesn't name it, Derek believes it falls to him as residual property." "What do you believe?" "I believe reopening probate could delay everything and create more fees." "That wasn't my question." Lori's voice lowered. "I believe the settlement should stay closed if there's a lawful way to keep it closed." Even with uncertainty over the parcel, Lori still valued completion over the reason Allison had bought the land. "Did Grandma ever say the courtyard belonged with the shop?" Ava asked. "She used it that way." "Did she say it?" "Not in anything I found." There was a pause before the last word. Ava heard it. "You were going to say something else." "No." "Lori, I have to go back to work." The call ended. Ava placed the phone beside the rehabilitation papers. She could decline the note, finish her current jobs, and sell whatever equipment brought enough money to move. That would protect her from debt. It would also end Sydney's offer, Robert's classes, and any chance of restoring the shop before the city deadlines came due. The shop no longer needed to rescue Ava from one bad month. It needed her to decide whether it would remain a working place at all. She signed the $38,000 rehabilitation note. The funds could only be released against repair invoices. The first payment would come due in 6 weeks. When she finished, Ava carried a pad of red inventory stickers through the workrooms. She marked the black machine, the cutting tables, Robert's bench, the pressing station, and the rolling racks. On every sticker, she wrote the same word: keep. The red stickers made Robert laugh. "You missed the iron," he said. Ava placed one on the old gravity feed iron. The sleeve board, she marked that too. The buttonholer in the office. "Does it work?" "No." "Then it gets a different color." Ava found a yellow pad and wrote "repair" before taping it to the buttonhole machine. Robert leaned against the cutting table. "What happens to things you can't keep or repair? They earn their space, or they go." That sounds like Allison. Allison kept dry cough drops. She believed in second chances. Ava gave him the inventory sheet. "I need you to list what the cooperative could use and what you need for classes. You've decided on classes. I've decided we can't repay $38,000 with trouser hems." Robert's smile faded when she said the amount aloud. "You signed it?" "Yes." "When?" "Yesterday." "And you didn't call me. It's my debt." "That isn't what I meant." Ava knew. Robert wanted to be consulted because his workbench, his plans, and part of his history now depended on what happened to the shop. But consulting him was different from asking permission. "I need you to tell me whether classes can produce income," she said. "I don't need you to decide whether I'm allowed to try." Robert studied her face, then looked down at the inventory. 4 people at a time in the front room, he said. "Basic repairs first. Buttons, hems, torn seams. They bring their own clothes. How much? $25 each for 2 hours. Would people pay that? They pay more to replace clothes they could fix." Ava wrote the figures in the ledger. "Can you teach next Saturday? My hands don't get a vote." "They can vote now." Robert flexed his fingers. "They say afternoon." Ava made a sign before he could change his mind. She listed 4 places and required payment in advance. The shop's first workshop would cover everyday clothing repairs, with tools provided. Robert read the sign twice. "Put my name on it," he said. "You sure?" "If I'm teaching, yes." She added Robert Montgomery beneath the class description. He nodded. The workbench wasn't merely something he'd recovered anymore. It had a job again. Ava spent that afternoon on the repair schedule. She called 3 roof crews from Allison's estimates. 2 were booked for months. The third had completed emergency work on older storefronts nearby and could begin within a week if the lender released the first payment. The estimate covered a patched membrane over the rear section, repaired flashing, and a new drain screen. It did not cover replacing the whole roof. Ava asked the contractor to explain exactly what would remain vulnerable. He showed her where water had entered, where the structure was still sound, and which section would likely need full replacement within several years. She wrote it all down. "Most people just ask whether it'll leak," he said. "Will it?" "Not where I'm repairing it. That's not the whole roof." "No." "Then write that in the estimate." He did. The electrical work could also be divided. The unsafe rear circuit would be replaced first, along with emergency fixtures and enough outlets for Sydney's production layout. The upstairs wiring would come later. Ava sent both estimates to the lender. By evening, the first release was approved. She didn't ask Lori what she thought. She didn't tell Derek. She sent Sydney a repair schedule, a floor plan, and photographs of the level cutting table. She explained that financing was in place for the building work, while courtyard title remained under review. Sydney called within an hour. "You borrowed before title was clear?" "I borrowed against the shop I own. That's a risk." "Yes." "You're not asking me to guarantee the loan." "No." "What are you asking?" "For your equipment requirements by Friday. Outlet locations, lighting, locks, and loading clearance. If I'm paying for electrical work, I want it useful." Sydney was silent for a moment. "I can send that. And I need a letter confirming you intend to take the lease to your board if I clear the courtyard issue and finish repairs. The draft already says that. The lender wants something on your letterhead. That's more formal than I usually get before title review. So is $38,000. Sydney laughed once. "I'll send it tomorrow." The letter arrived before noon. Ava printed 2 copies. One went into the lender file. The other she pinned above Allison's desk beside the stamped repair plan. The workshop filled by Thursday. The woman with the navy trousers took one place. 3 others paid through an online invoice Ava set up using her phone. One payment covered Robert's materials. The rest went into the business account Ava had opened that morning. No customer money went into the sewing box again. On Friday, the roof crew arrived at 7. Their ladders and rolls of material blocked half the sidewalk. Ava moved customer pickup to the courtyard gate and posted a clear sign. The noise began above her head while she worked. Dust shook from the rear ceiling. Robert covered the tables with canvas sheets and stayed near the crew, asking questions until Ava told him to let them work. "I'm making sure they don't seal the drain wrong," he said. "You made sure 3 times. They might forget. They won't forget you." By late afternoon, the broken gutter had been reset. Water no longer ran directly against the storefront brick. The new drain screen sat clean above the downspout. Ava climbed the ladder after the crew finished. She did not step onto the roof. She inspected the edge from the top rung while Robert held it below. The dark repair material lay smooth against the flashing. No leaves blocked the drain. The loose section that had lifted in the rain was secured. "It looks boring," she said. "That's what you want from a roof." The weather turned overnight. Ava woke to hard rain striking the front windows. She pulled on shoes and went downstairs with her phone light, expecting to hear the familiar metal tapping. The buckets were silent. She switched on the front lights. No brown stains spread across the new ceiling tiles. The cutting table remained dry. In the rear room, water moved through the downspout without backing onto the roof. Ava stood beneath the place that had leaked on her first day. One problem had actually stopped. She moved the buckets into the maintenance closet. At noon, Robert set up the workshop. He placed 4 chairs around the front table and laid out needles, thread, chalk, pins, and small scissors. His notes fit on one sheet of paper. "You wrote very little," Ava said. "I know what I'm saying. What if you forget? Then I'll say something else." The participants arrived carrying shirts, trousers, and one cloth grocery bag with a torn handle. Ava checked them in at the door and made coffee upstairs. Robert began with buttons. "Don't start by putting thread in a needle," he said. "Start by looking at why the old button came off." The woman with the navy trousers held up a blouse. "It went through the dryer. That tells me where it happened, not why." She laughed. Robert showed them how loose thread around the other buttons warned of the same problem. He spoke slowly, giving his hands time. When his fingers stiffened, he placed the garment flat and explained from the table instead of hiding the pause. Ava watched from the counter while finishing a zipper repair. Halfway through the class, Robert called her over. "Show them the shank." "You're teaching." "I'm resting my hands." Ava took the needle. She demonstrated how to leave room beneath a coat button by wrapping the thread before tying it off. "Too tight and the fabric pulls," she said. "Too loose and the button catches on things." Robert nodded. "There. You paid for 2 teachers and only expected 1. The class ended with 4 repaired garments and a grocery bag that could carry weight again. 2 participants asked when the next session would be. Ava scheduled it for the following Saturday. After everyone left, Robert sat at his bench and flexed his hands beneath warm water from a bowl. "You all right?" Ava asked. "I will be tomorrow. You did too much. I stopped when I needed to. You kept teaching. That wasn't the part that hurt." Ava entered the workshop income in the ledger. The amount wouldn't cover a loan payment, but it covered the afternoon, the materials, and Robert's agreed teaching pay. She wrote him a check. He looked at it. "What's this?" "Work. I was helping. You taught a paid class with your name on the sign." Robert folded the check once and placed it in his wallet. "Allison and I never settled this," he said. "Settled what?" "She wanted me to teach for free until the classes made money. I said free work had a way of staying free. What did she say? She called me difficult. She was right. So was I." The electrical work began on Monday. Sydney sent a diagram showing where her cutting lamps, steam equipment, and charging stations would go. Ava walked the rear room with the electrician and moved 2 outlets before installation. That saved the cooperative from running cords across an aisle. It also showed Sydney that Ava could manage the work without waiting to be told every step. Sydney visited the next afternoon. The rear lights came on in 2 clean rows. One cutting table still needed refinishing, but both main tables stood level and clear. New outlets lined the wall above Robert's bench. Sydney placed a rolling garment rack at the loading door and pushed it across the courtyard. One wheel caught in a pavement crack. Ava marked the crack with orange paint. "The gate needs another inch of clearance," Sydney said. "We can reset the hinge." "The locks?" "Ordered. Fire separation? Scheduled after electrical inspection." Sydney looked around. "You've done more in 10 days than some landlords do in 6 months. I'm not your landlord yet." "No, but now I can show my board something real." She took photographs of the room and the repaired roofline. Then she helped Ava carry the garment rack back to her car. Derek's truck was parked across the street. He sat behind the wheel, watching. Ava walked over before he could leave. "If you want to come inside, use the front door. I'm fine here." "Then why are you here?" "Lori said you took a loan. She shouldn't discuss my finances. You use the shop as security while part of the property is disputed. I use my property. What happens if you can't make the payments?" "I make them. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need." Derek looked past her at Sydney's car. "Is she ready to sign?" "When the courtyard is clear." His jaw shifted. "So, that's the target," he said. "What target?" "The lease. The thing you borrowed against." "I didn't borrow against a lease. You borrowed because you expected." Ava didn't correct him again. Derek lifted his phone. On the screen was the online notice for Robert's next workshop, including a photograph of the lit front room and a glimpse of the cooperative's rolling rack behind it. "You made the whole plan public," he said. "No, I advertised a class. You told everyone the shop is coming back." "It is." Derek locked his phone. "Then I guess we both know what losing the courtyard would cost you now." Derek drove away before she could answer. Sydney stood beside her car with the garment rack folded in the back. "Was that your brother?" she asked. "Yes." "He doesn't sound pleased about the lease. He doesn't own the shop." "I asked about the lease." Ava looked toward the alley. "He may have an interest in the rear parcel. That's more than a record problem. I'm working on it." Sydney closed the car door. "My board meets Friday. I plan to put this site on the agenda. Put it on. I can't recommend a lease if someone else may control the loading access. The building work is moving. I can see that. Then show them." Sydney considered it. "Get me something in writing before Friday. Not an explanation. Something that establishes who can grant courtyard access." She left without promising to keep Ava on the agenda. The electrician finished the rear outlets that afternoon. Ava approved the invoice and sent it to the lender. The payment reduced the available repair funds, but the lights worked, the circuits passed, and the cooperative's layout no longer required extension cords. It should have been another clear step forward. At 9 the next morning, Sydney forwarded Ava an email from Derek. The rear parcel remained part of Allison's unsettled estate, he wrote. No lease, access agreement, construction, or commercial use had his consent. Any agreement offered by Ava would concern property she did not own. He had copied Lori. Below Derek's message, Lori had replied in her role as executor. Ownership of the parcel is under review. Until that review is complete, the estate cannot authorize its inclusion in any private lease. Ava read both messages at the front counter. Robert arrived while she was reading them a second time. "What happened?" he asked. She turned the screen toward him. He read Derek's message first, then Lori's. Can he do this? Ava asked. He did. That's not what I asked. I'm a tailor. You've been right about everything else. Not everything. Ava called Lori. Her aunt answered after the fourth attempt. Why did you reply to him without calling me? Ava asked. Because he sent the message to a potential tenant and identified me as executor. I couldn't ignore it. You could have said the estate was checking the records. That's what I said. You said the estate couldn't authorize the lease. It can't. The estate was supposed to be closed. It was supposed to be. Ava heard papers moving on Lori's desk. Derek says the parcel belongs to him. He believes the residual clause controls. What do you believe? I believe the parcel should have been addressed before we signed. You wrote the agreement. The attorney wrote it from the inventory. You gave him the inventory. Lori's voice hardened. I know what happened. Do you? Yes, Ava. I missed a parcel. I am trying to correct that without creating more damage. For whom? For everyone. That answer always means Derek. It means probate fees, tax corrections, attorney time, and a settlement that may have to be reopened. Then reopen it. You say that because you don't understand the cost. I signed a $38,000 note because you told me the shop was mine. The shop is yours. Without the courtyard, Sydney won't lease it. I didn't know that when you borrowed. You knew the parcel was being questioned, and you borrowed anyway. The words landed because they were true. Ava had stopped asking permission. She had also stopped waiting for certainty. The difference had felt brave while the roof dried. Now it felt expensive. Did Derek ask you to support a sale? She asked. He wants the properties marketed together. And you? I want the ownership resolved. That still isn't an answer. I can't give you the answer you want just because you took a loan. Ava lowered the phone. Did Grandma ever tell you the courtyard had to stay with the shop? Silence. Lori? She used them together. You said that before, because that's what I know. It wasn't all Lori knew. Ava could hear the care in each word, the way her aunt stepped around something without naming it. Friday, Ava said. Sydney's board meets Friday. I can't create a property record by Friday. No. You can only tell the truth by then. Lori ended the call without replying. An hour later, the crew scheduled to reset the courtyard gate called Ava. Someone had contacted them about an ownership dispute. They would not perform work on the parcel without written authorization from the recorded owner or the estate. Ava asked who had called. The contractor wouldn't say. The custom hinge had already been ordered. Canceling meant a restocking charge and lost labor deposit. Ava could postpone once, but the crew's next opening was more than a month away. She postponed. Sydney removed the shop from Friday's board agenda. I'm not ending the discussion, she said over the phone. I'm protecting the cooperative. How long do I have? We're visiting another site Monday. You said 2 weeks, and your brother gave written notice that access is disputed. That changed the risk. The other site doesn't have these tables. No. It doesn't have the loading layout. No. What does it have? One owner. Ava closed her eyes. Sydney's voice softened. I want this place to work. Wanting doesn't let me tie up 6 people's jobs while a family decides what belongs to whom. Give me until Monday. I can give you until Monday morning. After that, I need to move. The call ended. Ava took down Sydney's letter from above Allison's desk. She didn't throw it away. She placed it in the lender file beneath the payment schedule. The next loan payment was now 5 weeks away. The shop earned enough that week to cover utilities, supplies, Robert's workshop pay, and a small amount toward groceries. It did not earn enough to cover the note. Without the lease, Ava would need to increase work immediately or begin selling equipment she had marked Keep. Robert found her peeling the red label from the buttonhole machine. That one was yellow, he said. I know. Why are you changing it? Someone in Memphis offered $900. Does it work? No. Then take the money. Ava stopped pulling at the sticker. I thought you'd argue. It isn't the only buttonholer in Arkansas. What about the pressing station? Keep it. The smaller cutting table? Keep it if Sydney waits. Sell it if she doesn't. Ava looked at him. You're very calm about dismantling the shop. I'm calm about one machine. It starts with one. It started when you signed the note. Again, the truth was unpleasant because it belonged partly to her. Ava completed the sale. The buyer arranged pickup from the front door and paid before loading. She entered the full amount in the ledger, then used part of it to cover the hinge restocking charge and reserve the next loan payment. The space in Allison's office looked wrong after the machine left. 4 clean squares marked the floor where its feet had stood. Ava set the mannequin in that empty space. Its diagonal seam faced the wall. Robert came in carrying the fourth rusted screw from the base plate. You got it out? Heat and language. Can we reach the rectangle now? Look. They tilted the mannequin carefully and removed the round bottom plate. Inside, a wooden brace ran from the iron stand into the torso. The hollow space surrounded it, but the brace blocked a hand from reaching the repaired side. Robert shone a light upward. There, Ava said. A pale edge showed behind the cloth. The stiff object sat inside a narrow lining pocket sewn directly to the mannequin's cover. It went in through the side seam, Robert said. It has to come out that way. Ava lowered the mannequin. Why sew a pocket inside it? To hold something in place. Why not use a drawer? Robert didn't answer. They replaced the bottom plate without tightening it. Ava turned the repaired seam toward the lamp. If we open this, we damage the cover. We cut only Allison's repair. The original seam can stay. But the repair is hers. So is whatever she put behind it. Ava took the small scissors from Robert's leather case. He put his hand over them. Not while you're angry. I'm not angry at the mannequin. Hands don't care. She released the scissors. Robert carried the magnifying lamp closer. He examined the diagonal stitching again, following it from the underarm to the place where the stiff edge rested. I saw her do this, he said. Ava looked at him. You said you only recognized the stitch. I didn't see her sew it. I saw the mannequin afterward. When? He remained bent beneath the lamp. Near the end of summer, 3 years ago. What happened? Allison left before lunch. Lori drove her. Where? The courthouse. Ava's attention moved from Robert to the seam. How do you know? Allison complained that courthouse chairs were designed by people who never sat down. She came back with a long envelope tucked into her handbag. What was in it? I didn't ask. Did she say why she went? No. Robert touched the mannequin's right shoulder. The next morning, this was gone from the window. She moved it into the office and put another form out front. I asked why. She said the shoulder had gone bad. This shoulder? Yes. Ava lifted the arm. It moved normally on its fitting. Did she ever use it again? No. And you just remembered this now? I remembered the trip. I remembered the mannequin leaving the window. I didn't connect the two until I saw the inside pocket. Ava thought of Lori's pauses, her careful answers, the parcel that Allison had used with the shop but kept under a separate number. A courthouse trip didn't prove ownership, and a hidden envelope might concern something else entirely. But it was the first fact that connected Allison's deliberate repair to a time and place. Was Derek there? Ava asked. No, just Lori. Ava picked up her phone. Robert straightened. Who are you calling? Lori, what are you going to say? That I know about the courthouse. And if she still won't talk? Ava looked at the diagonal stitches. Then I'll tell her I'm opening this with or without her. Lori didn't answer, so Ava left a message asking her to come before Monday morning. She told her the mannequin had been sealed after their courthouse trip. She did not mention what Robert remembered about the envelope. Then Ava called Sydney. I can't give you clear title tonight, she said. I may lose your lease. I understand that. Sydney waited. I'm still resolving it. If your board chooses the other site, I won't blame you. But I'm not selling the shop to make the question disappear. What happens Monday? I find out whether my grandmother left me an answer. Ava ended the call, set the scissors beside the mannequin, and accepted that whatever waited behind the seam might be useless. She would open it anyway. Lori arrived Sunday morning while Robert was laying clean muslin across the cutting table. She came alone. Her coat was buttoned wrong, and she carried Allison's estate file against her chest. I got your message, she said. Ava unlocked the door, but didn't turn the sign to open. Lori noticed the mannequin on the office threshold. Its base plate rested on the desk beside the rusted screws. You took it apart. We removed the bottom plate. Did you find anything? Not yet. Lori looked at Robert. What exactly do you remember? Robert told her. He described the courthouse trip, the long envelope in Allison's handbag, and the mannequin disappearing from the front window the next morning. Lori's attention stayed on the estate file. That was a difficult day, she said. For whom? Ava asked. Allison. She was tired. Why did you take her to the courthouse? She had papers to file. What papers? I didn't read them. Ava waited. Lori glanced toward the front windows. Can we speak upstairs? No. Ava, this doesn't concern Robert. He worked beside Grandma. He identified her stitching. It concerns him more than most of what happened in probate. Robert stepped away from the table. I can leave if you want. Ava shook her head. Stay. Lori put the file on the counter. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I'm making it difficult to avoid. Her aunt's face closed in the familiar way. Ava had seen it whenever a conversation moved beyond errands and paperwork. Lori could handle a hospital discharge, a funeral invoice, or a leaking pipe. She struggled when the practical task revealed a choice she regretted. Ava placed her phone on the counter. I'm not recording you, she said. I could, but I'm not. Lori looked at the phone. Why tell me that? Because I want you to answer without wondering whether I'm building a case against you. You may need a case. I need the truth first. Robert kept his hands flat on the muslin. Ava asked again, Where did you take Grandma? To the county recorder's office. The answer changed the room. What did she file? I don't know. You drove her there. I waited in the hall for part of it. Then she called me in because she needed help standing. Did you see her sign anything? I saw papers on the counter. I didn't read them. Did you hear what she said? Lori closed her eyes briefly. Yes. What? She asked the clerk whether the courtyard would stay with the person she named, even if the shop went through probate. Ava's hand tightened against the counter. What did the clerk say? That a properly recorded beneficiary deed would control the parcel when Allison died. I didn't understand the details. I still don't. Not fully. Who did Grandma name? Lori looked at Ava. She said your name. Robert lowered his head. Ava didn't move. The words were what she'd wanted, but they didn't give her relief. They exposed how close Lori had stood to the answer while pressing her to sign the settlement. What exactly did Grandma say? Ava asked. She said, the courtyard must remain with Ava. Then she asked whether she had filled in the transfer correctly. Did the clerk accept it? I saw the clerk stamp something. Did Grandma leave with a copy? She put papers into the envelope, Robert remembers. And you never told the attorney? I didn't know what the document was. You heard the words, beneficiary deed. I heard several things that day. Allison was talking about taxes, recording charges, and a legal description. She wouldn't let me look at the papers. Did you tell the attorney she filed anything? No. Did you look for the envelope after she died? Lori's silence answered first. I looked through her desk at home, she said. I checked the file cabinet here before the building was posted unsafe. I didn't find it. So you knew something was missing. I knew Allison had gone to the recorder's office 3 years ago. That doesn't mean every document remained valid. You didn't check. I searched the records the attorney requested, not the courtyard parcel. It wasn't on the inventory. You made the inventory. Lori gripped the edge of the counter. I was trying to close an estate after my mother died. Derek was calling every day about the house. You were losing your job and telling me you were fine. The shop had notices taped to the door. I used the papers I could find. And when I called about the second parcel, I should have told you about the courthouse. Why didn't you? Because by then you had signed. If I raised a document I couldn't produce, Derek would accuse me of favoring you. The attorney would reopen every file. The settlement might have stopped. I thought it was only something Allison had discussed. You heard a clerk stamp it. I heard a stamp. I didn't see the title. Ava looked at the mannequin. The diagonal repair no longer felt like an oddity. Allison had returned from recording something, brought an envelope into the shop, and retired the form immediately afterward. The stiff rectangle sat exactly where only the open seam could have placed it. That still didn't prove the paper inside was a deed. It did prove Robert's memory and Lori's memory met at the same day. Why hide it in a mannequin? Lori asked. Robert answered. Because you searched drawers. Lori turned toward him. I'm not accusing you, he said. Allison knew how people looked for papers. Desk, file cabinet, safe box, freezer. The freezer? She kept insurance receipts behind the peas once. Lori sank into the fitting chair. She could have told me. She tried to keep control of everything until the end, Robert said. That was one of her faults. Ava heard the kindness in his wording. He wasn't turning Allison into someone flawless just because she was dead. Lori opened the estate file and removed a printed email. Derek wants me to sign a statement that the parcel passes under the residual clause, she said. Did you? No. Will you? Not after this. That was the first useful choice Lori had made without being pushed toward quick closure. Ava sat across from her. I need you here tomorrow morning. For what? When I open the seam. Lori looked at the mannequin again. You don't need me for that. I need you to see what comes out. If it's nothing, then you'll see that too. And if it is the document, you tell the truth about the courthouse. Lori rubbed both hands over her face. Derek will think I kept this from him. You did. I didn't know what Allison filed. You knew enough to say something. Lori lowered her hands. Ava could have threatened her then. An executor who omitted a parcel and withheld a relevant courthouse trip had reasons to fear formal complaints. Ava could have demanded Lori support her claim or face public blame for mishandling the estate. The threat might have worked. It also would have replaced Lori's choice with fear, and Ava needed a witness who would remain truthful when Derek pushed back. I'm not asking you to take my side, Ava said. I'm asking you to state only what you saw and heard. What if that hurts Derek? That depends on what's in the mannequin. What if it hurts me? It probably will. Lori looked down at her crooked coat buttons. She corrected them one at a time. I'll come, she said. Will you tell Derek? No, you need to. He'll try to stop you. He can't stop me from opening something I own. He can make the morning miserable. That's not new. Ava picked up her phone and called Derek while Lori sat there. He answered with, Did she find the tax payment? Lori told me about the courthouse trip. Silence followed. What courthouse trip? He asked. She'll explain tomorrow. Explain what? Grandma filed something concerning the courtyard. What thing? We don't know yet. Then you have nothing? I have a sealed pocket inside the mannequin and 2 people who remember what happened around the time it was sewn. Derek's voice sharpened. You're basing property ownership on sewing? No. I'm opening the pocket. Don't. You don't control the shop contents. If there's an estate paper inside, it concerns me. That's why you can be present. Lori looked at Ava, startled. Derek asked, When? 8 tomorrow morning. Why not now? Because Sydney needs to see it, and because if there's a recordable document inside, I want the opening witnessed from the beginning. You called Sydney before me? I haven't called her yet. Derek breathed into the phone. I can make this easier, he said. Let me list both parcels. If there's a buyer, your loan gets paid first. We split what remains. You received the house and liquid estate. You received the shop and everything inside it. Then we both got something. I'm offering to share the value of the land. You're offering me part of what Grandma may already have given me. May have. You're risking the lease and your credit on a rectangle nobody has opened. Ava looked at Lori. Her aunt's face showed how reasonable Derek's offer sounded when stripped of its history. It was easier. Ava could sell, repay the note, avoid a title fight, and leave with money. Derek would call it cooperation. Lori would call it closure. The shop would become a property listing before Robert taught his next class. No, Ava said. If that paper is useless, the offer changes. I understand. If Sydney walks, don't come back asking me to rescue this. I won't. She ended the call. Sydney answered next. Ava gave her the same facts without promising what the mannequin contained. I'm scheduled to tour the other site at 10, Sydney said. Come here at 8. If it's a personal letter, I still have to leave. I know. If it's a deed, it still needs verification. I know that too. I'll come. After Lori left, Robert prepared the opening table. He placed the mannequin on its padded side, positioned the magnifying lamp, and laid out a seam ripper, small scissors, cotton gloves, and a clear document sleeve. Ava photographed the intact repair from several angles. She photographed the inside pocket through the open base. She wrote the date and time on a page in the shop ledger. Robert tested the lamp. You're treating this like surgery, Ava said. I've seen people tear old cloth because they wanted an answer faster. Ava touched the repaired seam without pulling it. Will the cover survive? If we're careful. That wasn't a promise. No. Using the only likely answer might permanently alter Allison's work. It would also change what Ava could believe about Lori, Derek, and the settlement. Once the seam opened, none of them could return to uncertainty. Ava locked the shop that evening and put the scissors in the office drawer. Before going upstairs, she set 4 chairs around the cutting table. 1 for Robert, 1 for Lori, 1 for Sydney, 1 for Derek. At 8 the next morning, they would all watch her cut the first stitch. Robert arrived at 7 with coffee and a fresh packet of document sleeves. He checked the lamp twice. Ava checked the office lock, though she knew she had locked it the night before. Lori came at 7:52. Sydney followed 3 minutes later and left her car facing the street for a quick departure. Derek arrived at 8:12. "You started without me?" he asked. "No," Ava said. "You said 8. You're late. I had to speak with the attorney." Lori looked at him. "Which attorney?" "The estate attorney." "You called him before I did?" "I asked a question." "What question?" Derek removed a folded page from his jacket. "Whether a paper found in personal property can override the settlement." Ava stayed beside the mannequin. "What did he say?" Sydney asked. "That depends on the paper." "Then you learned nothing," Robert said. Derek ignored him. He placed the folded page on the table. It was a printout of the rear parcel's online tax record. Allison Weber remained listed as owner. "This is the county record as of this morning," he said. "Grandma owned the land when she died. The settlement assigns anything left over to me." Lori opened the estate file. "The settlement doesn't say that in those words. The residual clause does. It assigns the residual estate according to the agreed division. It doesn't decide whether an asset passed outside the estate." Derek looked at her. "Yesterday you said the parcel was omitted. It was omitted from the inventory." "Exactly. That is not the same thing." He turned the tax record so everyone could see Allison's name. "This is what we know. She owned it. It wasn't given to Ava in the settlement. Ava has a key because the gate was used by the shop. That doesn't make her the owner." Ava listened without interrupting. Derek had committed himself to the version that favored him. In that version, Allison's courthouse trip was an old woman's unfinished errand. Lori's memory was too vague to matter. The stitched pocket held, at most, a paper that had never changed anything. He pointed toward the mannequin. "Even if Grandma wrote something saying she wanted Ava to have the courtyard, that doesn't transfer land. People write notes all the time." "You're right," Ava said. Derek paused. "A note wouldn't transfer it," she continued. "That's why we're going to see what this is." Sydney checked the time. "I have to leave by 9:15. Derek turned to her. "You should leave now. Whatever comes out of that thing, the estate disputes Ava's authority to offer the courtyard." "The executor is standing beside you," Sydney said. Derek looked at Lori. "Tell her." Lori held the estate file with both hands. "I won't authorize use of property the estate owns," she said. "I also won't claim the estate owns property Allison transferred before her death. You have no proof she transferred it. Not yet. That trip was 3 years ago. Grandma signed dozens of things. I drove her to the recorder's office. You drove her everywhere." Lori's expression tightened. "No, I didn't." Derek lowered his voice. "You're changing your story because Ava took on debt. I'm correcting what I failed to say. That's convenient." Ava moved between them. "This isn't about which one of you wins an argument. Sit down or wait outside." Derek stared at her. "This concerns my inheritance. It concerns mine too." He sat. Robert positioned the mannequin on its padded side. He adjusted the magnifying lamp until the diagonal stitches showed clearly. Ava washed and dried her hands at the front sink. Robert offered the cotton gloves. "Not yet," he said. "You'll feel the thread better without them." Ava took the seam ripper. The first stitch sat beneath the mannequin's raised arm. She slid the narrow point under it and looked at Robert. "Lift, don't pull," he said. She lifted. The faded thread separated with a quiet snap. Nobody spoke. Ava cut the second stitch, then the third. Robert held the fabric so its weight wouldn't tear the original seam. The diagonal repair began opening exactly along the path Allison had made. Halfway down, the edge of the hidden pocket appeared. Lori stepped closer. Derek remained seated, 1 foot moving beneath the table. Ava cut the last backward stitch. The repaired flap loosened but did not fall. Allison had turned the cloth inward before sewing, leaving a clean edge beneath it. Robert looked through the magnifying lens. "The cover's holding," he said. Ava put on the cotton gloves. She opened the flap with 2 fingers. Inside, a narrow cloth pocket had been stitched to the lining. A cream-colored envelope sat inside it, protected by a clear plastic sleeve. Ava drew it out slowly. The envelope was legal-sized. Allison had written Ava across the front. Lori covered her mouth. Derek stood. "That only proves she put your name on an envelope." Ava laid it on the clean muslin. The flap had been sealed with clear tape. Allison's initials crossed the edge in blue ink. Ava photographed it before sliding a small blade beneath the tape. Inside was one folded document. No cash, no second envelope, no letter promising an explanation later. Ava opened the page. At the top were the words beneficiary deed. Below them appeared Allison Weber's name, the legal description of the rear parcel, and Ava Weber as beneficiary. A county recording stamp marked the upper corner. The date matched the courthouse trip Lori remembered. Ava read the first paragraph, then stopped because the lines blurred. "Read it aloud," Derek said. She looked at him. "If you think it decides this, read it." Sydney moved beside Ava and examined the page without touching it. "It transfers the parcel to Ava when Allison dies," she said, "subject to any valid revocation recorded before then." "Is there a revocation?" Derek asked. "We don't know," Sydney replied. Lori leaned over the table. "That's Allison's signature." "You're not a handwriting expert," Derek said. "I watched her sign her name for 50 years. That still doesn't make this valid." Ava read the recording reference in the upper corner. It included a book number, page number, and time stamp from the county recorder. Robert brought the clear document sleeve closer. "Put it in this," he said. Ava slid the deed inside. Derek picked up the printed tax record. "This says Grandma was the owner." "A beneficiary deed doesn't change the tax owner while the person is alive," Sydney said. "It changes after death. You're a costume director, and I lease property." Derek faced Ava. "You could have put that paper in there." Robert's chair scraped against the floor. Ava raised one hand before he spoke. "You saw the sealed repair," she said. "You watched me open it. I saw cloth and an envelope. Lori saw Grandma file something at the recorder's office. Lori saw papers." Lori stepped forward. "I heard Allison ask whether the courtyard would pass to Ava." Derek turned toward her. "You're willing to say that formally?" "Yes." "Against me?" "It isn't against you. It takes property out of the estate. If the deed is genuine, it was never ours to divide." Derek looked from Lori to the document. His certainty had nowhere comfortable to go, so it became contempt. "What are you going to tell people now?" he asked Ava. Left with nothing at 25, she entered Grandma's tailor shop. One mannequin held a deed. Ava kept her voice level. "I'm not telling people a story. I'm getting the record checked." She called the county title office listed in Sydney's property file. Gabriel Hayes was available after a canceled appointment and agreed to examine the document that morning. Sydney moved her other site visit to the afternoon. "No decisions until this is checked," she said. Derek folded the tax page and put it in his pocket. "I'm staying." "That's fine," Ava said. "You can hear the answer with everyone else." Gabriel arrived just before 10, carrying a laptop bag and a portable scanner. At 47, he had the patient manner of someone accustomed to people bringing him papers they desperately wanted to mean more than they did. He introduced himself, washed his hands, and examined the deed beneath Robert's lamp. "I'm not deciding a family dispute," he said. "I'm identifying the document and comparing it with the county index." "That's all I need," Ava replied. Gabriel checked the recording stamp first. He entered the book and page reference into the county system. The indexed entry appeared on his laptop. Grantor, Allison Weber. Beneficiary, Ava Weber. Property, the rear parcel number, written on Allison's tax notice. He compared the legal description line by line. The boundary calls matched the county entry. The acknowledgement seal and recorder reference matched. Allison's signature on the owner's copy aligned with the scanned image held in the county record. "Could this have been revoked?" Derek asked. "Yes, during Allison's lifetime, by a properly recorded revocation, or a later recorded instrument affecting the same property." "Was it?" Gabriel searched the parcel history from the deed's recording date through Allison's death. No revocation appears. Derek pointed at the tax page. "Then why does the online tax search still show Grandma?" "Assessment records update separately. They don't determine whether a recorded transfer became effective. When did it become Ava's? Upon Allison's death, according to the deed. Not after probate? No. This type of deed passes the named property outside probate. The estate settlement did not transfer this parcel because the parcel had already passed under the recorded instrument." Lori sat down. Ava asked, "What do I need to do now?" "Record an affidavit of death and update the assessment record. Those steps document what has already happened. They don't create your ownership, so the estate doesn't need to give me the courtyard." "No." Derek looked at Gabriel. "You're basing that on a copy hidden in a mannequin. I'm basing it on the matching county index and recorded image. The owner's copy confirms what the county already received. That ended the only challenge Derek had left without inventing a new one. Gabriel scanned the owner's copy for Ava's records, wrote a short authentication note with the recording reference, and packed his equipment. He gave Ava instructions for updating the property file, then left. He did not congratulate her. He had confirmed a recorded rule. Allison had done the part that mattered 3 years earlier. Sydney read Gabriel's note and the county entry. "This clears the ownership condition," she said. Derek stood near the front door. "You knew," he said to Lori. "I knew Allison wanted the courtyard to stay with Ava. I didn't know she completed the deed. You could have warned me. I should have told both of you. That doesn't fix it." "No," Lori said. "It doesn't." He opened the door and looked back at Ava. "You'd have lost everything if that paper wasn't there." "Yes." "And now you think this makes the settlement fair?" "No." The answer stopped him longer than anger would have. Ava held the sleeve deed against the cutting table. "It makes the courtyard mine," she said. "That's all this paper has to do." Derek left. Sydney took the conditional lease from her folder and placed it beside the deed. "I can take this to the board today," she said. Ava looked through the rear room toward the courtyard gate. For the first time, the key in her pocket and the land beyond the door belonged to the same clear answer. "Take it," she said. Sydney returned that afternoon with 2 board members on a video call. She walked them through the rear room using her phone. Ava stayed out of the presentation unless someone asked her a direct question. Robert demonstrated how the cutting tables locked into place and how their drawers cleared the aisle. One board member asked about the courtyard twice. Sydney showed Gabriel's authentication note, the county index, and the deed's legal description. "The owner is Ava Weber," she said. "The shop and loading parcel can be leased under one agreement." Hearing it stated as a plain business fact felt different from hearing it during the argument. No one on the call cared which sibling had expected the land. They cared whether garment racks could move through the gate and whether the electrical work would pass inspection. The board approved the lease that evening, subject to the remaining repairs. Sydney came back the next morning with final copies. Ava read every page at the front counter. She checked the monthly amount, the 5-year term, the repair deadline, the shared front access, and the list of spaces excluded from the lease. The upstairs rooms remained hers. So did the alteration business and the right to schedule workshops. Sydney had added one change. Paid workshops led by Robert Montgomery may use the cooperative workroom when our production schedule allows, Ava read. Robert looked up from his bench. "You put my full name in a lease? You wanted your name on things," Sydney said. "I meant the class sign. Now it's on both." He tried not to look pleased and failed. Ava signed first. Sydney signed for the cooperative. The lease did not erase the rehabilitation note. Rent would begin only after the required work was completed and the cooperative took possession. Ava still had to reach that point, but the signed lease changed what the lender could rely on. The remaining repair funds were released against the approved schedule. The gate crew returned. The fire separation work was booked. The electrician ordered the final fixtures without asking for another delay. Sydney left one signed copy with Ava and took the other. "I'll bring our production manager next week," she said. "After the firewall is closed." Agreed. "No equipment gets stored here before insurance takes effect." Agreed. "And your people don't use the upstairs bathroom." Sydney smiled. "You're becoming a landlord. I'm becoming someone who knows where the pipes can fail. That's most of the job." After she left, Ava placed the lease in the office cabinet. The deed went into a fire-resistant document box she bought that afternoon. The mannequin remained on the cutting table with its side open. Robert examined the loose fabric. "We can close this now," he said. "With the same stitch? If you want it to look like Allison's repair, I want it to show it was opened." He thought about that. "Then we use matching thread but place a small line of straight stitches at the bottom. Anyone who knows the cover will see the difference. Will it hold?" "Yes, do that." Robert handed Ava the needle. "You do it, I'll tell you when it's wrong." She re-sewed the flap over the empty pocket. Her diagonal stitches were less even than Allison's. Robert corrected her tension once and made her redo the final inch. At the bottom, Ava added the short straight line. The repair held. It did not pretend nothing had happened. Derek came late that afternoon. He didn't knock. He used the front door during customer hours and waited beside the counter while Ava finished pinning a jacket sleeve. When the customer left, he placed a copy of the beneficiary deed on the counter. Lori gave me this. She was right to. You signed the lease. Yes. For $3,200 a month. Yes. You could pay off the loan in a little over a year. Not after expenses, taxes, insurance, and repairs. You know what I mean. Ava removed the pins from her wrist cushion and returned them to the box. What do you want, Derek? A share? No? He seemed prepared for negotiation, not refusal. I'm not asking for half. No. The estate paid taxes on that parcel after Grandma died. If it did, send me the amount. I'll repay the estate's actual expense. That's not a share. No. Derek put both hands on the counter. I gave you the shop. You agreed that I could receive the building everyone called a liability. You signed willingly. I did. And now the same deal gives you property worth $310,000. The deed gave me the courtyard before the settlement. You wouldn't have found it without the shop. That's true, which I agreed you could take. Ava looked at him. You're describing my inheritance as something you handed me. I could have fought for the shop. You didn't want it. I didn't know. Neither did I. That's my point. No? Your point is that you would have treated me differently if you knew the thing I received had value. Derek's mouth tightened. He didn't apologize. He wasn't ready to see his behavior as anything except a negotiation that had gone badly for him. Grandma set us against each other, he said. She made choices without explaining them. We set ourselves against each other. You're keeping all of it. I'm keeping the property she recorded to me. And the lease says it's my lease. He picked up the deed copy. What about the house? Are you going to claim the division was unfair now? No. The answer surprised him. I signed the settlement, Ava continued. I'm not coming after your house or the liquid estate. I'm not using the deed to undo what you got. Then why can't you share this? Because not taking from you isn't the same as owing you. Derek looked toward the mannequin. This is really it? For the land and lease? Yes. If something goes wrong, don't ask me for money. I won't. And don't expect me at the reopening. I wasn't planning around you. He left with the deed copy folded in his pocket. Ava watched through the window as he crossed the street. She wanted him to turn around, not because she would change her answer, but because some part of her still expected family conflict to end when she found the correct words. Derek kept walking. The next morning, Lori brought a check from the estate for the buttonhole machine. Ava didn't take it. What is that? She asked. The sale proceeds should have been accounted for as shop income. They were. I know. This is the same amount. Why? Derek told the attorney. You sold an estate asset before the settlement was final. The machine transferred with the shop. The attorney agrees. Then, why is there a check? Lori looked embarrassed. Because I wrote it before I asked. Ava pushed it back. This is what has to stop. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to make the problem disappear with paperwork. Lori tore the check in half. All right. She opened her tote and removed a signed statement describing the courthouse trip. It included only what she had seen and heard. She had also prepared the affidavit needed to update the rear parcel after Allison's death. I sent copies to the attorney and Derek, she said. I corrected the estate inventory to show why the parcel was excluded. That creates more work for you. Yes. Derek won't like it. No. Why are you doing it? Because it's accurate. Ava read the statement. Lori had not softened her omission. She wrote that she knew Allison had recorded a document concerning the courtyard and failed to disclose that knowledge when the parcel question first arose. You didn't have to include that last part, Ava said. Yes, I did. An apology would have been easier. This put Lori's mistake into the same file she had once wanted clean. Ava signed the affidavit where required. Thank you, Lori said. For what? For letting me fix the record. That doesn't fix us. I know. Ava handed back the papers. If you hear something that affects me, you tell me. You don't decide whether I can handle it. I understand. And you don't give Derek information about my loan, customers, or lease. I won't. Ava wanted to believe her. Belief had become slower. Lori looked toward the rear room, where the gate crew was setting new hinges. Do you need help today? With the estate? With anything? Ava almost said no. Refusal would have protected her from owing Lori gratitude, but it also would have turned the boundary into a wall. The old courtyard numbers need to come off the brick, she said. There's a scraper in the maintenance closet. Lori took off her coat. They worked without discussing the family. Lori scraped peeling numbers from the rear wall while Ava cleared rust from the gate frame. The work was slow, and left red dust on their clothes. At noon, Lori asked where to order lunch. "You don't have to buy it," Ava said. "I know." They ate sandwiches on the loading step. Lori stayed until the new gate swung freely over the repaired pavement. When she left, she took the affidavit to be filed. Robert's next workshop had 6 names on the waiting list. Ava limited the class to 4 and scheduled a second session rather than crowd the room. She gave Robert a simple teaching agreement with an hourly rate, preparation time, and the right to cancel when his hands were bad. He read the cancellation line. "You think I'll use this?" "I think you should." Allison would have crossed it out. "I'm not Allison." "No," Robert said. "You're paying on time." He signed. The remaining repairs moved quickly, though nothing about them felt easy. The firewall closed the rear workroom from the upstairs stairwell. New exterior lights covered the courtyard. The bathroom doorway was adjusted. The gate received a lock controlled only by Ava and Sydney. Every invoice reduced the loan balance available. Every delay moved closer to the first payment. When workers opened the rear wall for wiring, they found damp insulation that had to be replaced within the existing budget. Ava gave up refinishing the office floor to cover it. The office could remain ugly. The wall had to remain dry. On the final Friday before the cooperative's move, the building inspector approved the rear production room for use. Sydney received 2 gate keys and signed for both. Ava kept the original brass key with Allison's handwritten tag. Then a delivery truck backed into the alley for the first time. Its driver opened the rear doors, and Sydney rolled out 3 empty garment racks. The repaired gate cleared them by 1 inch. Sydney pushed the first rack through, then looked at the gap beside its wheel. 1 inch, she said. 1 useful inch, Ava replied. The next 2 racks cleared just as easily. Fabric bolts came after them, wrapped against the weather. Robert directed their placement from his bench until Sydney told him this cooperative had its own production manager. "I'm protecting the tables," he said. "They survived Allison. That's because I protected them from Allison." By the end of the day, the rear room had changed function. Cutting lamps stood above the long tables. Labeled storage bins filled the wall shelves. Rolling racks waited beside the loading door. Nothing covered Ava's machines or crowded Robert's bench. Sydney had followed the lease. The cooperative began work Monday morning. 6 adults arrived carrying coffee, tool cases, and garment bags. Ava unlocked the courtyard at 7:30 and watched them move through the gate without entering her upstairs home. At 9, the pressing equipment tripped a new breaker. Sydney found Ava in the fitting room. "We have a problem." Ava followed her to the rear panel. The circuit had been installed for the load Sydney specified. 1 steam unit was drawing more power than its label showed. "We can move it to the other circuit," Sydney said. "Not across the aisle. We'll tape the cord down." "No, it's 1 cord. It's 1 person carrying fabric who doesn't see it." Sydney folded her arms. "We have work due Thursday, so call the electrician. That costs money. The equipment is yours. The outlet placement is yours. The placement matches your diagram." Neither woman softened. Sydney called the electrician. The steam unit needed service, not a different outlet. The cooperative paid for the visit, and the machine returned to use the next day. Afterwards, Sydney brought Ava a revised equipment list. "You were right about the cord," she said. "I know. You could pretend this is difficult for you. It was difficult yesterday." That was their first real disagreement. The lease survived it because both of them followed what they had signed. At the end of the first month, the cooperative paid $3,200 directly into the shop account. Ava sat at Allison's desk and divided it among the loan payment, insurance, taxes, utilities, and a repair reserve. The money removed the immediate danger. It did not become spending money. Ava made the rehabilitation payment 3 days early. Then she bought a mattress for the upstairs bed frame. Until then, she had continued sleeping on the folding cot. The larger front room upstairs still held boxes under plastic sheets. The bathroom walls needed paint, and the narrow kitchen had only a hot plate, a small refrigerator, and a sink. Lori helped carry the mattress up the stairs. "Turn it," Ava said at the landing. "I am turning it. You're pushing, because you're not turning." They got it wedged between the rail and the wall, Robert called from below. "Take it back down and rotate it." Neither woman answered him. They lowered it 2 steps, changed the angle, and carried it through the bedroom door. Lori sat on the floor afterward, breathing hard. "He was right," she said. "We're not telling him." They painted the bathroom the following Saturday, Lori asked before moving Allison's old medicine cabinet. Ava said it could stay if the hinges were cleaned. The The question mattered more than the cabinet. Lori no longer arrived with decisions already made. When a final tax bill from the estate appeared, she brought Ava a copy before paying it. They checked the parcel number together. It belonged to the house, not the courtyard. Derek's expense, Ava said. Yes. Lori put it back in her tote. Trust returned in small, testable pieces. Ava gave Lori a front door key for emergencies. She did not give her an upstairs key or courtyard key. Lori accepted the one she received. The affidavit documenting Allison's death was recorded. The tax record for the rear parcel was updated to Ava's name. Gabriel's authentication note remained with the deed in the fire-resistant box. No second paper appeared. None was needed. Derek stayed away for 6 weeks. Then he came during a Wednesday afternoon fitting. He waited outside until Ava finished, though the door was open. I found these at the house, he said. He handed her a cardboard envelope containing old photographs. Allison stood in the courtyard in one, holding a tape measure while Robert set bricks along the loading step. Another showed the mannequin in the front window, wearing a red wool coat. Those go with the shop, Derek said. Ava looked at him. He added, I figured you'd say that. Thank you. He put his hands in his pockets. The house still has some fabric in the attic. Make a list before moving it. I can bring it. Make a list first. Derek looked through the window at the cooperative workers. You really have people here every day, most weekdays. And classes, Saturdays. He nodded toward the stairs. You live up there now? Yes. Can I see it? Ava closed the photograph envelope. Not today. His face tightened in the old way. Then he looked at the front counter, where Lori's emergency key hung from a hook marked with her name. He understood that someone else had been allowed closer. You trust her again? I'm seeing whether I can. She made the mistake. She told the truth when it cost her. Derek looked away. Ava did not invite an apology, and he did not offer one. You can come to the next public workshop, she said. Robert's teaching coat repairs. I don't sew. Then don't come. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a door with hours posted on it. Derek returned 2 Saturdays later, carrying a coat with a torn pocket. He paid the same fee as everyone else and sat at the end of Robert's table. Robert did not make the lesson easier for him. Your first stitch is too close to the tier, he said. It looks fine. It won't after you use the pocket. Derek pulled the thread out and began again. Ava worked at the front machine without watching him too closely. When class ended, he showed her the repaired pocket. Robert made me redo it 3 times. He was being kind. Derek almost smiled. He left without asking about the lease, the land, or the money. He also left without asking for an upstairs key. Robert's workshops grew to 2 Saturdays each month. He taught in shorter sessions so his hands could recover. The first time he canceled, he called Ava at 6 in the morning. My fingers won't close, he said. I'll move the class. I can talk. You can demonstrate. Not today. We'll lose the fees. We'll reschedule. Ava called each participant and offered a new date or a refund. All 4 chose the new date. Robert arrived the following week with his hands moving again. You didn't have to protect me from work, he said. I protected the work from pretending you were fine. He considered that, then set out the needles. The upstairs rooms changed one task at a time. Ava repaired the desk lamp, painted the bedroom, and hung Allison's old measuring tapes along the stairwell. She kept the larger room open instead of filling it with stored fabric. Lori brought a kitchen table from the house after Derek put it on the attic list. He signed the list before it moved. Sydney donated 2 chairs the cooperative no longer needed. Robert repaired the loose joints but refused to paint them. Chairs should admit they've been sat on, he said. Ava's alterations increased, though she stopped accepting every job. Cooperative deadlines did not become her deadlines. Robert's classes did not replace her own work. The shop account paid expenses, the loan payment, and wages before Ava paid herself. Some months were narrow. None returned her to $47 and nowhere to sleep. The mannequin took longer. Its fabric cover needed cleaning, its loose shoulder needed padding, and its iron base needed rust removed. Ava and Robert worked on it between customer jobs. They did not erase the diagonal seam. Ava's straight stitches remained visible at the bottom. For the reopening, Sydney dressed it in a fitted green jacket created from leftover costume wool. Robert objected to the sleeve length. Sydney adjusted it by 1/2 inch and made him check both sides. Lori cleaned the display glass. Derek repaired the small wooden platform beneath the mannequin without being asked. When he finished, he wrote the cost of materials in the ledger and refused payment for his time. Ava paid for the wood anyway. The reopening wasn't large. People came for alterations, workshop schedules, and a look at the cooperative's workroom. The front sign still carried Allison's name. Beneath it, Ava added alterations, costume production, and paid tailoring workshops. She didn't add her own name. At closing, Lori stacked paper cups while Sydney locked the courtyard. Derek carried folding chairs into storage. Robert sat at his bench with both hands around a warm mug. Nobody behaved as though one afternoon had repaired the family. When Derek left, he asked whether the coat class would run again. "Next month," Ava said. "I might bring another one. Pay in advance." He nodded. Lori waited until Ava locked the front door. "Do you want help upstairs?" "Not tonight. Call if you do." "I will." This time, Ava believed she might. If stories about young people rebuilding a life after family betrayal matter to you, subscribe and return for the next inheritance story. After everyone left, Ava walked through the rear room. Fabric rested in labeled bins. The cutting tables were clear for morning. Robert's workshop tools stood in a wooden tray beside his signed teaching schedule. She checked the courtyard gate and turned Allison's brass key in the lock. The new exterior light covered the loading step and the repaired pavement. Upstairs, the kitchen table waited beneath a small lamp. Clean towels hung in the bathroom. The mattress sat beneath the front window, no longer borrowed, temporary, or offered for one night. Ava returned downstairs and switched off the cutting lamps. She left one light above the front counter and another inside the display window. The green jacket sat evenly across the mannequin's repaired shoulders. Its hidden pocket was empty now, but the careful seam remained. The repaired mannequin stood in the warmly lit front window as Ava closed the workroom and climbed the stairs to her home.